Chapter 161. The next afternoon, Yang Tian, who hadn't slept for nearly 24 hours, suddenly stopped flipping through the book. He quietly took out the dotting pen and drew a crystal-clear ice silkworm on his white jade book. The bell in the ancestral hall rang again. Yang Xuet, who was bored at the side, was stunned. What was going on? Wasn't this guy reading a book the whole time? How did he break through? For the first time, she had deep doubts about her talent for cultivation. Yang Tian was not in the mood to care about the changes in the outside world at this moment. With the completion of the analysis of the ice silkworm, a thread in the intelligent brain was vacant, which made him feel like a waste of resources. But at this moment, an idea suddenly occurred to him, and he quickly asked the intelligent computer, "Can the idle thread deduce a spell to accurately turn every page of the book?" Instantly, the cold mechanical voice of the intelligent computer sounded, "Modeling has been completed according to the latest instructions. Deduction begins." Oh my god, it actually works. Yang Tian was very confused. In fact, he really wanted to tell the intelligent brain, "I just want to try it." The short-lived excitement and random thoughts could not dispel Yang Tian's thirst for knowledge. After a short rest, he continued his book scanning mission. In the middle of the night, the old man who couldn't stand it any longer finally came to question him, "You kid, are you going to die? You're just in good health and you want to risk your life? I don't care, go to sleep and read after you've rested. Otherwise, I will seal this library and see if you can get in." Yang Tian, who had been immersed in it, was suddenly interrupted. He was stunned instinctively, and then a feeling of fatigue instantly surged into his heart. "Oh, Grandpa, I am really too involved. Let's take a rest first, let's take a rest first." While speaking, his stomach even growled. "You didn't have dinner." The old man looked at the people around him with a bad look while speaking. "I've finished my meal, but I ate in a hurry." Yang Tian quickly replied with a wry smile. At that time, he was so enthusiastic about reading that he didn't have the mind to chew slowly. He just took a quick bite. "Go, tell the kitchen to prepare some food. Don't make it too greasy. It's hard to digest late at night." While giving the instructions, the old man led Yang Tian out of the library. Looking at the old man with a face full of blame, Yang Tian changed the subject with a guilty conscience. "By the way, Grandpa, when I was touring with my cousin today, I found that the family territory is too big, right? The population is so large. How did they do it?" As expected, the old man was just worried about his grandson, not really angry. Upon hearing this, he sighed, "Alas, all of this is also due to the influence of our ancestors. This space was originally a small world at the mountain gate, passed down from generation to generation. How can we now have such a powerful ability? The inheritance has been cut off." Looking at his grandson who was eager to learn, the old man explained, "Not only our Yang family, but also most of the inheritance of the cultivation sects in China has been lost. Of course, there are many reasons, such as exhaustion of spiritual energy, extinction of rare spiritual herbs, natural disasters, man-made disasters, wars, etc. After the baptism of endless years, how many strands can still be intact?" Yang Tian also felt something and agreed, "That's true. It's a pity that my Yang family is not a family that practices stargazing. Otherwise, the impact would be small, right?" The old man smiled bitterly and explained, "Alas, the Yang family does have very few books on astronomy. It's not just the Yang family. There are almost no books in various sects and families that truly explore the art of stargazing." Yang Tian was stunned and said in disbelief, "How could this happen? Is this road blocked?" "Haha, this is a broad road, how can it be blocked? In fact, this involves the secrets of the cultivation world. Tianer, have you heard of Sishan Pavilion?" Looking at Yang Tian's blank expression, the old man continued. "Then you should have at least heard of the name of the Imperial Astronomical Bureau, right? It was a department in the ancient imperial court that was in charge of observing astronomy and calculating the calendar. In ancient times, this department was also called the Imperial Astronomical Bureau. But outsiders don't know that the superiors of the Imperial Astronomical Bureau in all dynasties were disciples sent by the Imperial Astronomical Bureau. The Imperial Astronomical Bureau and the royal families of all dynasties reached an agreement that the royal family helped the Imperial Astronomical Bureau to collect cultivation materials and astronomical books. The Imperial Astronomical Bureau helped the royal family eliminate disasters, protect the country's destiny, and safeguard the foundation for eternity. Let's do the math. After so many dynasties, what astronomical books are there that are still circulating? The ones currently circulating on the market are just about stargazing. Do they have anything to do with cultivation? Yang Tianzhen was shocked by this secret. He couldn't help but think of what his astronomy teacher Professor Sinistra said. The Western astronomy tradition was also cut off. Is there any connection between the two? While thinking about it, Yang Tian asked casually, does Sikong Pavilion still exist now? Of course they exist, but people from their sect rarely go out and contact other clans. I don't know what the current situation is. The old man replied. That's right. At this time, the midnight snack had been delivered to the old man's courtyard, but Yang Tian was not in the mood to eat or drink. Instead, he slapped his thigh and said, Grandpa, the astronomy course I studied at Hogwarts seems to have a strong auxiliary effect on the Yang family's practice. Do you want to try it? Oh? There is such a good thing. The old man was overjoyed when he heard it and quickly asked for details. Of course Yang Tian would not keep the knowledge to himself. He took out the telescope used in astronomy class and started to explain it to the old man. The old man and the young man chatted while eating. One taught seriously, and the other learned enthusiastically. They chatted for more than an hour until the old man almost understood the method of visualizing Venus. In the next few days, Yang Tian finally got on the right track. Apart from eating and sleeping, he took root in the library. Even when he was teaching the old man knowledge of astrology and chatting with his relatives, he basically did it in the library. On the other hand, the preparations for the ancestral worship ceremony were also in full swing, cleaning, preparing offerings, sending out invitations to the ceremony. The entire Yang family was busy. That day, Yang Tian was still flipping through the books when he heard the old man excitedly shout, Xiao Tian, pause for a moment. Your Thunderbird has arrived. Hearing this, Yang Tian stood up excitedly. After receiving the reply from his grandfather the day before yesterday, the old man arranged for Diao Lao to lead the team to Fiji for support. I thought it would take 3 to 5 days anyway, but it was done in 2 days? With curiosity, Yang Tian, under the guidance of his grandfather, finally came to a huge iron cage. He saw inside the iron cage, a huge thunderbird with multiple pairs of wings exuding a majestic aura. According to the information in Hagrid's reply, Yang Tian carefully observed this giant bird from Arizona, USA. That's right, the sharp eyes, the unruly temperament, and the purple arcs surging around the body are the most obvious characteristics of a wild thunderbird that has not been restricted. Yang Tian casually picked up a branch and threw it at the thunderbird. The next moment, lightning flashed, and the dry branch turned into charcoal in an instant. How is it? There shouldn't be any problem, right? The old man asked curiously. Don't worry, Grandpa, there will be no problem at all. Yang Tian said confidently. The old man was delighted when he heard this. So are you going to start your research now? No hurry, wait until I carve out Qingluan, then I'll compete with this little guy, ha ha ha. Yang Tian was in a good mood and said jokingly. Chapter 162. Don't we always say that good things come in pairs? The ancients were right. On the second day after Yang Tian received the Thunderbird, another good thing happened to him. But I heard the cold mechanical voice of the intelligent computer in my mind, the deduction of the spell command has been completed, please name it. Still naming it? Yang Tian was confused, but he immediately gave the order, book dance spell. The intelligent brain asked again, do you want to receive all the information about the deduction of the book dance curse? Receive. Yang Tian ordered again. In an instant, the elemental structure of the spell, the staff-waving gestures and the incantation all flooded into Yang Tian's memory. After a moment of contemplation, Yang Tian drew 2 arcs with the ancient magic wand and whispered, Wing Ordo Pagina. The next moment, the book in front of him began to turn pages automatically, one page after another, quickly and accurately. Yang Tian was so excited. This is so useful, isn't it? Can you imagine? It only takes 2 minutes to turn a heavy book from beginning to end without missing a page. As if he had a new toy, he cast the book dance spell on the books in front of him one after another, and the people who helped him before only needed to move the books and organize them. In this way, the efficiency was greatly improved again. But Yang Tian was still not satisfied. Since he already had a book-turning spell, could he create a book-reading spell? Wouldn't it be great if he could create a pair of eyes in the air and take in everything within the range? Yang Tian immediately gave his idea to the intelligent computer in the form of instructions, and the answer from the intelligent computer was not surprising. Modeling has been done according to the latest instructions, and deduction has begun. Well, it was a good time anyway. Yang Tian continued to cast the book dance spell. On the afternoon before the ancestral worship ceremony, Yang Tian had to stop his book sweeping work again. Because his father, who had been kneeling for so many days, finally made a move. The news that Elder Li and Elder Xiao, along with hundreds of their family members, had received 3 kowtows from Yang Wen spread like wildfire in the inner courtyard of the Yang family. At this moment, Yang Tian felt worried and angry, and hurried to Ziza courtyard. As soon as he entered the door, he saw his father, who seemed relieved. Even Yang Tian was amazed at his relaxed state. At this moment, Yang Tian even felt that maybe his grandfather was the one who really understood his father. Has his father really let it go now? Seeing his son rushing over, Yang Wen was not surprised at all. Instead, he pulled him to sit down, and while making tea, he talked about the past. Back then, Yang Wen was naturally a child of destiny, a rare genius with 4-element talents, coupled with his status as the eldest son of the patriarch. One can imagine how much the clan members doted on him. But Yang Wen was devoted to cultivation and had an arrogant temperament. He firmly believed that since he had achieved the 4-element qualification at such a young age, it was only a matter of time before he achieved the peerless qualification of gathering all 5 elements. But ideals are full, but reality is very skinny. He practiced hard for several years, but his understanding of the wood element did not improve at all. This was simply unforgivable for Yang Wen, who was young and proud. He did not think that there was anything wrong with his talent, but was determined that the wood-type magical animal used for depiction was not perfect, which affected his perception. So, after failing to comprehend the wood element again, he took the only sons of the Li and Xiao families and ran down the mountain to look for more perfect wood-type magical creatures. China is a vast country with abundant resources, but after years of traveling around, he did not find a single wood-type beast that could improve his understanding of the wood element. Yang Wen was really stubborn. After searching in vain in China, he actually thought of searching across the border and directly took the 2 little ones across the ocean to the UK. When they were in China, the various sects would give them some leniency for the sake of the Yang family's dignity, and some families with whom they had good relations would even secretly look after them. But when they were abroad, who knew your Yang family? Who would give you face? The 3 boys, who were extremely outspoken and fearless, started to inquire about the situation in the magic world and look for wood-type magical animals as soon as they arrived in the British Muggle world. This move naturally attracted the attention of Saruk. Soon, the 3 of them encountered a group of black-robed wizards of unknown origin and continued to attack. In the end, in order to cover Yang Wen's escape, the only sons of the Xiao and Li families blew themselves up on the spot. After Yang Wen escaped, how could he let go of the murderer who killed his good brother? He contacted the Yang family for support while continuing to track the group of black-robed wizards. The Yang family was naturally not ambiguous and sent out a full 80 good fighters, and the leader was none other than Elder Li, the father of the deceased brother. In fact, Elder Li did not blame Yang Wen too much for the pain of losing his son, but instead believed that his son's death was worthy of his own in order to protect the young master. However, the head of the family was furious and issued a death order before leaving, requiring that after handing over the information to Yang Wen, he would be locked up and sent back to the family for disposal after the operation was completed. The entire operation was handed over to Elder Li for full responsibility. This was also a chance for Elder Li to take revenge himself. After that, everything seemed to be going very smoothly. Through the Yang family's tracking methods, they kept a close eye on the black-robed wizards and locked down their base, a cathedral in Brighton. But at this time, Yang Wen, who was imprisoned, caused trouble. No one expected that Yang Wen, who wanted to avenge his 2 dead brothers, would use his life-saving magic weapon to break free from his restraints and escape. During this period, there was a lot of noise, but it did not escape the eyes of Saruk. Because of this, a revenge and annihilation battle that was supposed to be beautiful turned into a battle of breaking out. In a short period of time, the elites of the Yang family fought a desperate battle with the multiple Saruk wizards. These wizards were in black robes, green robes, and even blue robes. But when 3 red robe wizards appeared at the end, everything was over. There were more than 80 people in the Yang family, but only 11 of them broke out. Elder Li was furious and vowed to bring Yang Wen, the reckless man, back to the family to be punished. But Yang Wen knew that he had caused a big disaster and was unwilling to let Saruk go, so he left a letter again and fled, never to return. Elder Li, who was overwhelmed with defeat, immediately asked for help from his family and returned to the scene to investigate. However, the result was that the place was empty and all traces were wiped out. Even though the 5 idiots and other tracking experts had done their best to investigate, they could not find any clues. After months of searching without any results, the Yang family had no choice but to retreat. Elder Li and Elder Xiao were also disheartened by this incident and stayed away from home for many years, claiming to be sick. "Oh, Dad, you are so confused." After hearing the whole story, Yang Tian felt extremely depressed. He endured it again and again, but in the end it just turned into this complaint. "I admit that I was extremely wrong back then. The more I have led Nightmare to struggle for survival over the years, the more I feel how stupid I was back then. If it weren't for my precious son like you, I'm afraid I would never have the face to return to the Yang family again in my life." Yang Wen sighed. "Alas, I am ashamed of the warriors who fought for my Yang family. How spoiled was his father to be so ignorant and domineering." At this moment, Yang Tian finally understood his father's decision to attack the laboratory. Maybe it was a way of self-salvation, just to have the face to see those brothers who died for him after his death. Instantly, Yang Tian felt depressed and heavy, which made him feel very uncomfortable. He really didn't want to continue to be wrapped in this emotion, so he had to change the subject and said, "Since we have finally returned to the Yang family, then father will prepare for the future." Before he could finish his words, Yang Wen interrupted him with an impatient look on his face. "What is there to plan? If I don't uproot Sarek in this life, I won't be able to face my Yang family soldiers after I die." Yang Tian understood his father's feelings very well, but still said, "Dad, you have to understand that the soldiers of my Yang family encountered elites back then. According to your description, the highest combat power was the blue-robed wizards and the red-robed wizards. Although we have captured several important departments of the opponent, at most we only have green-robed wizards in charge. We still have a long way to go. It's okay, Tianer. Just do it boldly. Dad and Mom will listen to you when it comes to dealing with Sarek. Don't you know? Old Xia has compiled a file of everything you did while in Hogwarts and reported it in detail to the Yang family. Oh, I feel incompetent when I think about it. I have been working hard for more than 10 years but there is not any effect like what you have done in the past 2 months. I feel ashamed when I think about it. Fortunately, you are my son. If Salok is destroyed in your hands, I will have the face to see my brothers after my death." Yang Wen sighed. The two were still talking when the gate was suddenly pushed open. Chapter 163. The courtyard door was pushed open heavily, and 2 white-haired and mighty old men were seen, with tears streaming down their faces, bowing to Yang Tiana. "Young master, thank you for avenging our relatives. We are here to thank you on behalf of our dead brothers." When Yang Wen saw the people coming, he felt ashamed and quickly explained, "These 2 are Elder Li and Elder Xiao." Upon hearing this, Yang Tian hurried forward, helped the 2 old men up and said, "Grandpa Li, Grandpa Xiao, what are you talking about? My father and I are ashamed of the Yang family soldiers." Elder Li said immediately, "Young master, please don't say that. Although Wenner made a big mistake back then, my old subordinates and I have investigated in many ways and have not found any clues about him. On the contrary, young master, with his age as a tutor, was able to fight these bastards to a draw. Isn't that embarrassing for us?" Without waiting for Yang Tian to refute, old Li said again, "Young master, the old man has only one request. Count me in when we go back to deal with Salok this time. I don't care about command or not. As long as I can get revenge, I have no problem being a soldier charging into battle." As he said this, he prostrated himself again, and old Xiao also bowed down with him. Yang Tian was startled, and hurried forward to support him. "Grandpa Li, Grandpa Xiao, how can a child like me make the decision on this matter? How about this, after the ancestor worship ceremony, let's discuss it with the old man and let him make a decision." The 2 thought about it for a while and found that it was indeed the case, so they stopped worrying about it. The 4 of them sat together again, talking about the past and present, as if they had endless things to say. The next morning, the main gate of the Yang family, which had been closed for many years, suddenly opened. Yang Zhou and Yang Yang led a group of elders from the side branches to stand outside the gate and wait eagerly. After a while, a huge white snake-shaped beast flew over, and a person stood leisurely on the snake. Behind the white snake, more than 20 silver-armored warriors came on the clouds. "Father-in-law, why did you come here in person?" After everyone landed, Yang Zhou hurried forward to greet them. Ha ha ha, the Yang family has encountered such a big event, how can I not come here in person to congratulate them? The person who came was Zhang Yun, the current Heavenly Master of the Heavenly Master Mansion in Longhu Mountain, and Yang Zhou's father-in-law. Your useless brothers-in-law will be here soon and help you with the arrangements. We are all family, so you don't have to worry about me. I'll go up and talk to that old guy myself. After saying that, he went into the mountain gate on his own. The arrival of Heavenly Master Zhang Yun seemed to have kicked off the ceremony of the crowd paying respects to the mountain. Various major forces came in an endless stream. The Wang family, the Li family, the Yan family and other cultivation families were not to be mentioned, the Lingxiao Pavilion, the Shangqing sect, the Taiji sect and other old-fashioned sects also came to congratulate, even some secluded individual cultivators came after hearing the news. It can be predicted that this ancestor worship ceremony will become a rare grand event in recent years. About an hour later, the huge martial arts arena in the outer courtyard of the Yang family was already crowded with people. Everyone gathered with people they knew and discussed this grand ceremony. However, the Taoist Lingxiu of Taiji sect was sitting on the armchair and asked in a low voice, Master Zhou, you, the deputy leader of Shangqing sect, are attending the ceremony in person? You know something about this, right? Don't play dumb in front of me. We are all smart people. It's been 30 years, right? When have you ever seen the Yang family show off their strength like this? If you didn't smell something, I don't believe you would put down the mundane things of Tai Chi and run here. Taoist Zhou immediately retorted. You two stop whispering here and look at the Yang family's relatives. The contemporary Heavenly Master of Longhu Mountain is here, and the patriarch of the Wang family is here in person. The Yang family must have encountered a once-in-a-century opportunity. It was Elder Qin of the Tianji sect who spoke. But I heard that it is related to the person who was expelled from the Yang family's family tree. Taoist Zhou said mysteriously. The invitation said that the grandson is returning to his ancestral home. So, the problem is still with the child. I suspect that there must be an extraordinary monster. Taoist Lingxiu said without doubt. There were many similar discussions, especially when the spectators saw the joyous look on the faces of the entire Yang family, they all confirmed this conjecture. At noon, the huge martial arts arena was already crowded with people. Suddenly, the deep and heavy sound of bells and drums rang out. The bells were melodious and echoed in everyone's ears, the drums were deafening, but accompanied by a solemn atmosphere. The spectators who were chatting before fell silent and sat solemnly on the throne chairs. After the sound of bells and drums, accompanied by the elegant and solemn music, the direct relatives of the Yang family followed the old man out in a line, followed closely by the elders of the collateral family. The whole team was the same as before, the only difference was that next to the old man, there was a handsome boy in his teens, following closely behind him. The crowd watching the ceremony were all shocked when they saw this scene. Who is this child? He is accompanying the head of the family at such an important celebration. He must be spoiled to death. The Yang family members were unaware of the other family's thoughts and continued to walk forward solemnly. After an incense stick of time, they finally arrived in front of the solemn ancestral altar. The ancestral altar was paved with snow-white marble, with 28 lifelike reliefs engraved on it, recording the footprints of the ancestors. The tribute platform was also made of white marble, on which were placed the ancestors' rankings, incense burners, tributes, and other things. After everyone lined up, the old man lit 3 incense sticks and said in a loud voice, "Today, there is Yang Tian, a descendant of the Yang family. He is smart, studious, and gifted. He drifted to a foreign land when he was young, but was blessed by his ancestors and has now been found. I specially open the ancestral hall to comfort our ancestors and allow him to return to the family genealogy." After that, he inserted the incense into the incense burner. Under the guidance of Mr. Liao, Yang Tian also hurried out, first kneeling 3 times and kowtowed 9 times to burn incense for the ancestors, and then pierced his index finger with a golden needle and touched the blood onto a white jade plate. The white jade plate was stained with blood and turned blood red in an instant. The incense in the incense burner ignited without wind and burned to the bottom in an instant. The sound of wooden fish and bells rang out immediately. The heavy white jade book placed on the tribute platform opened without any wind. The Yang family tree appeared in the smoke. Under the huge veins, Yang Tian's name appeared at the bottom of the family tree. But what was abrupt was that there was no vein above his name. Such a scene naturally caused the crowd watching below to murmur again. But at this moment, the old man said at the right time, "Test the qualifications of Yang Tian, the grandson of the Yang family." After that, he handed a 5-colored ball to Yang Tian and whispered, "Inject the power of the 5 elements into it." Yang Tian immediately understood and poured the elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth into it. In an instant, the 5-colored sphere was lit up with red, blue, gold, brown, and green lights, causing the spectators to exclaim in surprise. "Oh my god! He actually has the talent of gathering all 5 elements? He has already achieved the 5 elements at the age of 11. Isn't this talent too amazing? There hasn't been a genius like this in the last 300 years, right? The Yang family is on the rise." Amid the crowd's exclamations, some people were puzzled and muttered, "Doesn't the Yang family always use 10-color stones to test qualifications? Why did they use the 5-color beads of ordinary sex this time?" Ignoring the discussions of the crowd, the old man's voice resounded throughout the venue again. "According to the clan rules, before the age of 25, those who have completed the 5 elements of Qi cultivation, regardless of whether they are legitimate or illegitimate, will be moved into the main lineage, and the 3 generations of direct descendants will be pardoned regardless of any previous crimes. Therefore, Yang Tian's father, Yang Wen, and his mother, Sophie Free, are invited to be included in the family tree." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Wen and Sophie walked quickly through the corridor under the guidance of the priest elder. After another set of complicated rituals and sacrifices, the white jade book automatically opened again, and the lineage on the family tree was finally complete. Chapter 164. The ancestor worship ceremony ended perfectly, and the next step was naturally to have a banquet for relatives and friends. The Yang family had naturally put a lot of thought into the delicacies on the 300 huge round tables. But the old man didn't care at all. At this moment, he was leading Yang Tian to toast at each table with great pride. "Alas, I'm not saying anything bad, my grandson is good at everything except practicing. Look, he has only been back for a few days, and he has already read almost all the books in the library. How about this, Master Zhou, let him go to your place to read for a few days." "Oh, Master Lingxiu, what's the point of rising or falling? This kid has made it big, how could he forget the elders who helped him? Don't give him anything too expensive. Doesn't your sect have a yin-yang fish tai chi diagram for enlightenment? Give the kid one to see the world. Hey, why is Elder Qin sitting at this table? Let's have a couple more drinks later. This is my grandson Yang Tian. He is also your descendant, right? By the way, your Tianji sect is unrivaled in medicine and divination after all. Can you give my grandson a pair of the best tortoise shells in the sect?" As a result, a wonderful scene appeared during the singing ceremony of each school. The Tianji mansion gave me a copy of the talisman collection. The Wang family gave us 13 copies of the ancient pill recipe. Shangqing sent a copy of the ghost talisman scripture. The Tai Chi sect gave me a yin-yang fish Tai Chi diagram. Lingxiao sect sent a secret fruit of thunder source. Watching the various families and factions below the stage putting away their original gift boxes and solemnly replacing them with something more precious, the old man couldn't help but curl up his lips slightly. In fact, the ancestral worship ceremony did not bring much impact to Yang Tian's life except for a wave of gifts. As soon as the ceremony was over, the little guy was eager to throw himself into his book-reading career again, and no one could persuade him to do anything. Just like that, 2 days passed in a hurry, and Yang Tian finally reaped his rewards again. The analysis of the Blue Luan was completed. The successive breakthroughs during this period made him feel extremely calm at the moment. After he drew the Blue Luan on the white jade book as usual, he gave the command to the intelligent computer to analyze the Thunderbird's lifeline. He was immersed in introspection. He wanted to take stock of the benefits brought by the series of breakthroughs. The first thing to be affected was naturally his Danshan, which was already very lively at this time. The golden little tiger, the green little dragon, the brown unicorn, the blue little turtle, and the red liquid firebird were all running in various strange and complicated routes, sometimes attracting each other, and sometimes repelling each other. The routes they ran implied the truth. Around the 5 elements, in addition to the dark element that has evolved into a liquid black dog, the blue wind element, the white light element, and the grey ice element each occupy a position. The 4 mutant elements are also running in a strange way, interdependent with the 5 elements, which is really magical. At this moment, Yang Tian was extremely anxious to successfully analyze the Thunderbird. He clearly felt the missing part in his Danshan. In contrast, Yang Tian's magic power increased even more dramatically. Compared to before he fell into a coma, his magic power increased 9 times. Although he himself could not measure what this 9-fold increase meant, according to the evaluation of the intelligent brain, his magic power was only slightly lower than that of a 7th-year student at Hogwarts. Thinking back to what his father had said, there would be another increase in magic power in the 3rd and 4th grades, Yang Tian instantly felt that he was invincible. And the darkness in his mind had actually lit up about 1/3 of its area, as brilliant as the Milky Way, and very beautiful. Of course, beauty was secondary, the main thing was that his memory had greatly increased, and he could think about problems very quickly. It was as if he had become an intelligent brain. Yang Tian had a strange feeling that something magical was being nurtured in the Milky Way. After fully understanding the changes in his body, Yang Tian slowly opened his eyes. The joy in his heart at this moment was beyond description. At the same time, he also had boundless hope. The mystery of the suitcase that had been hidden for many years should be solved. Late at night, Yang Tian returned to the bedroom but did not rush to sleep. Instead, he couldn't wait to enter the 4th layer of the suitcase. It is still the same space of about 30 square meters, and it is still the same ancient hexagram. At this time, 3 corners of the hexagram have been occupied by blue, red, and brown light, and the other 3 corners are empty. Yang Tian had a brief realization and then looked excited. It is indeed wind. Water, fire, earth, and wind? Haha. As he spoke, another corner of the hexagram was occupied by blue. And you, light element and dark element. Yang Tian excitedly declared his victory, without stopping his hands at all. As the last 2 corners finally shone with black and white light, the hexagram was completely activated. The 6 elements moved and intersected along the trajectory of the hexagram, eventually forming a colorful light ball. Without any pause, the light ball emitted a colorful light, quickly outlining on the right wall, until the colorful light ball was completely consumed, and an ancient stone door was finally carved into shape. Yang Tian took a deep breath and pressed hard against the stone door with both hands. However, at the moment when his hands touched the stone door, a creaking noise sound came from under the heavy stone door, and the stone door slowly opened automatically. Is it Haishan too? The faint moonlight outside the door made Yang Tian understand instantly. As he stepped into the stone door, the breeze blew and he could see the surrounding environment. It turned out to be a dense forest. Various trees and plants swayed in the wind, glowing with vitality. But after just a quick look, he discovered something strange. It was so quiet here that it could even be said that everything was silent. Apart from the sound of the wind, Yang Tian could no longer hear any other sound. Where are the chirping of insects and birds? Where are the roars of wild animals? With a frown on his face, Yang Tian sat on the somersault cloud, passing through the dense trees and soaring into the sky. He wanted to take a good look at this land. But as he circled in the air, Yang Tian was even more confused. This space was really huge. Forests, lakes, mountains, rivers, grasslands, all kinds of natural scenery were there. But the same problem still existed. There was no sign of any animal survival in any natural landscape. Yang Tianzhen just didn't believe in evil. He thought for a moment and then chose a direction to move forward madly. He didn't know how long he had been flying, but just when he was about to lose his patience, he saw an extremely terrifying scene. But in front of him, countless space cracks spread all around and went straight to the sky, blocking the way forward. And this wall made of space cracks seemed to have no end. This is completely different from what I understand as the traceless stretching spell. What the hell is this place? Yang Tian was really stunned. He looked up at the night sky, thinking hard, but he was deeply attracted by the clouds in the sky that he accidentally caught a glimpse of. Because in the dark night, the clouds were dazzling and sparkling against the laws of nature. What was even more incredible was that the clouds actually formed lines of beautiful handwriting. Observe it, understand it, master it, perfect it, surpass it. Then, you will become one of us. Yang Tian really didn't know what to say. Everything in front of him was beyond his cognition. Thousands of words could only be summed up in one word: fuck, a kind of plant. After thinking for a long time, Yang Tian finally came up with a plan. He quickly returned to the 3rd floor, and sent most of his reconnaissance troops and the Fire Ash Snake group into this unknown space. He wanted to see if this place was suitable for animals to survive. He also wanted to find more clues about this space through them. And there was still a lot of time. He believed that he could definitely solve the secrets. After finishing all this, Yang Tian happily packed up his suitcase and went to bed. But Yang Tian didn't know that at the moment when the hexagram carved out the stone gate, under the giant eye like Stonehenge near the Salisbury Plain in England, a voice screamed madly, "Damn it! Why is there a major shift in the star Sabik and Ophiuchus? Could it be that the treasure lost by Sarek has been cracked? How is this possible? Why? Why doesn't the starry sky indicate the cracked location? Even a general direction would be fine. Spread the news now, immediately, right away. Chapter 165. After a good night's sleep, Yang Tian woke up to another wonderful day. After breakfast, he went to the library and got another big surprise. A new spell was deduced again. When Yang Tian held the ancient magic wand and cast the spell he named Eagle Eye, a bird-shaped transparent light and shadow shot out from the tip of the wand. The next moment, it spread its wings and flew into the sky. But after reaching the top, it exploded instantly and turned into a pair of eagle eyes, overlooking all living things. In an instant, all the scenery below the eagle's eye appeared clearly in Yang Tian's mind. Yang Tian was overjoyed to see the magic spell was so powerful. He quickly called for more people to help and expanded the scope of turning the books to a radius of 500 meters in front of the library. All he had to do was to continuously cast the book dance spell. Yang Tian was filled with excitement. He could create a spell in a few days. What about potions? Talismans? Transfiguration? He seemed to see a door to the strongest road slowly opening for him. But at this moment, he was tangled again, because he thought of the mysterious space in the suitcase again. After a fierce ideological struggle, Yang Tian finally issued an order: Intelligent Brain, use the idle threads to analyze the mysterious space in the suitcase. Therefore, in the next few days, Yang Tian would search and travel in the mysterious space every night to provide more materials for the Intelligent Brain's analysis. By the way, Grandpa, how is the effect of my teaching you astrology during this period? Yang Tian asked while chatting with the old man after dinner that day. It does have a certain amplifying effect, but according to my assessment, it should be a relatively superficial application of astrology, at least much worse than the techniques of Sitn Pavilion. The old man was obviously in a good mood and answered casually. Grandpa, I have never understood, since this sect has always been in the court, why is it so low-key now? Yang Tian asked the question in his mind. I don't know the specifics, but according to rumors, after the Ming dynasty was destroyed, this sect never entered the world again and has been living in seclusion in the mountains and forests. The old man replied, I think without the support of the royal family, their cultivation resources will be greatly reduced. If no outstanding talents emerge in recent years, it is not surprising that they will gradually decline. Grandpa, from what you said, it seems that there are many sects that are declining now. Yang Tian asked with an idea in his mind. A lot. People are restless nowadays. Apart from the children of the family, how many people are willing to concentrate on cultivation? Talents are hard to come by. The old man sighed, but this is not the main reason. The most important thing is that the main ingredient of the Qianling Wuodao pill has been cut off, which has greatly increased the threshold for cultivation. Otherwise, why would it be like this? Qianling Enlightenment Pill? Yang Tian asked in surprise. This is a pill for children to open their minds and enhance their comprehension. Back then, every sect had one. With this pill, it is easier for children to get started. Not to mention those with high comprehension, there is a great chance that they can improve their comprehension. After a pause, the old man continued, let me put it this way, if your father had a Qianling Enlightenment pill, he would have achieved the momentum of the 5 elements gathering together. Yang Tian was dumbfounded when he heard this. Is there such a miraculous elixir in the world? Since this elixir is so important, isn't there any sect that wants to find a way to improve the formula? Yang Tian asked puzzled. Of course we tried, and one after another, generation after generation. But this nether grass is really strange. After it became extinct about 400 years ago, there is really no substitute. Alas! After saying this, the old man sighed, unable to hide his loss. Yang Tian's heart was burning with excitement at this moment. The abnormal deductive ability of the intelligent brain emerged unconsciously in his mind. If he could find a substitute for the Qianling Enlightenment pill, wouldn't the Yang family be able to dominate the world? Of course, he didn't want to unify the martial arts world for eternity. But he also wanted to know if it would work to trade that one pill of Qianling Wuodao pill for the right to read all the classics and secrets of the sect. While thinking about it, Yang Tian suddenly smiled. Isn't this a joke? The alternative prescription has not been developed yet, and you are thinking about other people's good things first? Thinking of this, Yang Tian smiled and said, Grandpa, I'll go back and rest first. I have to get up early tomorrow to go to the library. Hey, you don't have to work so hard, right? You can never finish reading this book. It's good to take a rest and get to know your family more. The old man advised. I still want to finish reading all the books before the holiday is over. Yang Tian said solemnly. Actually, you don't have to go back. Now your father's knot has been basically untied. There is really no need to stay in such a chaotic place. Isn't it good to practice at home? The old man said hopefully. Grandpa, Sarek has not been uprooted yet. Nightmare and my companions are still fighting hard for it. How can I give up so easily? How can the soldiers of my Yang family be willing to die in vain? Sarek owes our Yang family that much. Elder Li and Elder Xiao were vying to fight Sarek to the death a few days ago. And I have a feeling that if I can combine Eastern and Western cultivation methods, I may be able to find a unique path of my own. Astrology is a good example. Although, as Grandpa said, it is very crude, that is because the Western astrology tradition has been broken. If I can dig out more secrets, I can imagine how much it will help me in my cultivation. Well, okay, Grandpa knows that he can't persuade you. But you also have to remember that my Yang family is not a soft persimmon. When you leave this time, listen to my arrangements. No matter what danger you encounter, I will ensure that you can escape unscathed. Yang Tian nodded seriously, but suddenly remembered something and said anxiously, Oh, Grandpa, I have a friend in Hogwarts who has helped me a lot. He was a great help to me with the thestrals and unicorns I got this time. He has a natural liking for huge exotic beasts. I wonder if you can find him a young one like this. Oh, what do I think? Leave it to me. Our Yang family has raised a unicorn leopard, which is suspected to have the blood of the ancient Zhen. Although it does not have 5 tails and 1 horn, it also has 1 tail and 1 horn. The most important thing is that it is huge in size and runs very fast. The old man tirelessly described the characteristics of the unicorn leopard. Yang Tian was overjoyed when he heard this and readily agreed. Finally, he could give Hagrid an explanation. Early in the morning of December 1991, 12, there were still many days left before the end of the holiday, but Yang Tian and his parents had to embark on their journey home with the reluctant farewell of many relatives and friends. Accompanying them were Mr. Li and more than 22 of his old subordinates. Looking at the figure that was getting farther and farther away, and then looking at the old man with a smile on his face, Yang Shui said aggrievedly, Grandpa, my cousin and his family are gone, but you didn't seem to be very sad. You even said that you loved your cousin the most. Unlike me, that is true love. Humph. As she spoke, the girl wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Tisk, are those your true feelings? You see that your eldest aunt, who could play pranks with you the most, and Xiao Tian, who could protect you the most, are gone, so you can't be lawless anymore, right? The old man refused to give in. Grandpa, what are you talking about? I am not that kind of person. Yang Shui said innocently, but after a pause, she asked curiously, are you really willing to give it up? Haha, what's there to be reluctant about? How old is Xiao Tian now? It's a critical period for his advancement. There's a lot of time in the future. The Yang family is his root. After saying that, the old man smiled carefreely, hummed a little tune, and left leisurely. Chapter 166. In fact, Yang Tian did not want to leave the Yang family in such a hurry, although he had already scanned all the books in the library, and the intelligent brain had one more thread. He also used this new thread to deduce the spell, which was the tree that he released when he lost his mind during his first magic riot. This spell had special meaning to him. On the other hand, he also wanted to spend more time chatting with relatives and friends, and to spend 2 more days with his grandfather, at least until the end of the holiday. But things are so unpredictable, and an urgent letter from his grandfather completely disrupted his plan. The core content of the letter was only one: Mrs. Zabanai was frantically looking for Yang Tian. Especially in the past 2 days, this woman didn't care and went straight to the Furley Manor. Barnett also asked her why she was looking for her grandson, but this woman always avoided the question and refused to tell him. She just kept asking whether Yang Tian was in danger and how to see Yang Tian as quickly as possible. Old Fry knew something about what happened between Yang Tian and Mrs. Zabanai, and Mrs. Zabanai's unusual behavior made him feel that the matter was unusual. So, Mr. Barnett did not dare to delay at all and directly passed the news. This is why Yang Tian hurried back. The reason why Elder Li personally escorted them was because the old man was scared of being tormented. Since the last talk with Yang Tian, Elder Xiao and Elder Li have been concerned about protecting the young master's safety and fighting Saruk. Yang Tian couldn't make the decision on this matter, but the old man could. So, the two began to bombard the old man in turns. The main point was that the task of protecting the young master must be mine. The old man was really scared, but he also had a trick up his sleeve. As the head of the Yang family, the old man solemnly announced that he would entrust the task of protecting the young master to one of the two people. As for who would go, it was up to them to decide. Seeing the ball kicked back again, Li and Xiao were so depressed. But if they took a step forward, they would have to fight with Saruk and settle scores. If they took a step back, they would have to stay at home and not get anything. How could they give in? So, the two elders tried their best to negotiate, throw tantrums, and fight, and almost had a fight. Seeing that the two were arguing, Yang Tian had to mediate. Under the mediation of the young master, both sides had no choice but to take a step back. Elder Li and Elder Xiao took their own teams to protect the young master in turns for half a year. Well, the two elders finally realized that this was the only way. In the Furly manner, Yang Tian hastily pushed open the door of a secret room. He had just returned not long ago and had no time to drink a sip of water before he was told that Mrs. Zabanai was already waiting for him in the secret room. "Why are you in such a hurry?" Yang Tian asked straight to the point. "It looks like they're going to attack me." Mrs. Zabanai looked uneasy. "You're exposed?" Yang Tian asked in surprise. "No, but they seem to have encountered an emergency and are cleaning up all the tales that may lead to leaks. And I am the one they are most worried about. I saw the letter that group of bastards wrote to that little bastard Blaze. They have already agreed that they will take me away in 3 days, and if I resist, they will completely clean me up. By then, the entire Zabanai family will be ruled by that little bastard." Mrs. Zabanai was completely panicked. Yang Tian smiled playfully and said, "So, you have made up your mind to submit to me." Although Mrs. Zabanai's face was filled with bitterness, she said resolutely, "I have no way out. This is my only choice, isn't it? That being said, I must remind you that we will hold a small ceremony later, and we will know whether you are loyal or not. I really don't want you to waste this only chance." Although he still had doubts, Yang Tian still planned to take the risk. After all, he is now a world apart from when he was injured. "You don't need to remind me again and again. I believe you have the ability to verify loyalty, and I also know that this is my only chance. Don't underestimate the reality and decisiveness of a Slytherin." After a pause, Madame Zabanai put on a pitiful expression and said, "I would like to make a small request. After I submit to you, can you please not let me go to Saruk as a spy? I really can't do it, I will die." Yang Tian smiled gently and said, "You can rest assured about this, Mrs. Zabanai. I am not Saruk, and I will not joke with the lives of my men." Mrs. Zabanai finally felt relieved after hearing this. She took 2 deep breaths and said resolutely, "Then let's begin." Yang Tian did not delay and took out a flag embroidered with a nightmare and countless black cloths and candles from the white jade ring. After a simple decoration, a sense of mystery and solemnity inexplicably emerged in the secret room. During the whole process, Mrs. Zabanai stood there calmly, watching the handsome boy busying himself, but she herself did not move at all. Then, Yang Tian solemnly drew out the ancient magic wand and pointed it at the right side of his brain. The magic power emitted from the tip of the wand, pierced into his temple and went straight to his eyes. Under the observation of the soul's eye, Yang Tian was extremely excited, because at this moment, a large amount of purple air was emerging from Madame Zabanai's soul, and it was endless, which represented repentance and obedience. With such great news, Yang Tian no longer hesitated. He gently rolled his magic wand again, and his soul began to spin. The waves of black energy released continued to condense, and finally formed a black seed. Without any hesitation, Yang Tian slapped it on the center of Mrs. Zabanai's forehead. As always, Mrs. Zabanai was completely in the dark. But unlike before, Mrs. Zabanai did not panic at all after waking up, nor did she encounter any backlash. She followed her heart and respectfully called out 2 words, "Master." This kind of Madame Zabanai made Yang Tian look at her with a high regard. She judged the situation calmly and made up her mind without hesitation or dragging her feet. He nodded in satisfaction and walked up to Madame Zabanai, where he was going to collect the benefits of planting soul seeds. Yang Tian pressed his left hand on Madame Zabanai's forehead, and instantly, all of this woman's memories, using his palm as a bridge, flowed into Yang Tian's mind like a tide. This was the only chance to retrieve Madame Zabanai's memories before her soul seed was completely integrated into one, so he was particularly careful. Very good, I will treat you now. Yang Tian was really satisfied with the woman's performance. After completing a series of operations, he took the lead in requesting treatment. Mrs. Zabanai felt relieved upon hearing this. Her judgment was indeed correct. This young master was a man of his word. Full of hope, Mrs. Zabanai lay down on the long sofa according to the young master's instructions, and Yang Tian also opened the inner vision again. The poison was okay, but the curse was a bit of a problem. But for Yang Tian, who had a vast knowledge base of both the East and the West, it was not a big problem. In order to ensure that there would be no accidents during the treatment, Yang Tian also used the intelligent brain to simulate the entire process of removing the ban. 13 Ghost Gate Needles, Wood Element Spring Breeze Rain Technique, Dark Element Assimilation, Light Element Restraint, Water Element Moisturizing. Yang Tian can always implement many methods in the most effective way. Chapter 167. After a long time, Mrs. Zabanai finally stood up weakly and said excitedly with tears in her eyes, "Thank you for saving my life, Master." This thank you came from the bottom of her heart. No need to worry about these trivial matters. Yang Tian waved his hand casually and continued, "You still have a team of more than 30 wizards under you, right?" "Yes, Master." Madame Zabanai said more respectfully, "Do you need them to carry out a mission?" Yang Tian laughed and said, "They are not that strong, are they? What kind of mission can such a team perform besides waving flags and shouting? You are too narrow-minded." Looking at Mrs. Zabanai who looked puzzled, he continued. "My goal is to make you an emerging force in the Pure Blood family and my spokesperson in the Pure Blood family. What you need to do is to attract more Pure Bloods to your camp." "But, Master, this is difficult. For thousands of years, the Pure Blood families have already had their own fixed allies, and the forces of all parties have basically been fixed." Madame Zabanai stammered. "Don't be too pessimistic. Don't forget that I will help you. Let's do this, you go and persuade your first loyal ally first." Yang Tian said with a smile. "Who?" Mrs. Zabanai asked puzzled. Sally's Lestrange." Yang Tian still smiled. "Master, I know this woman, but she is a pushover. When she encouraged the purebloods to fight Saruk, that was..." Madame Zabanai's voice got smaller and smaller, and she finally stammered, "This matter has nothing to do with the master. You are not that stupid. I will explain the little things to you in detail when I have time. But what you need to do now is to convince this piece of rotten meat to submit to me." Seeing Mrs. Zabanai's embarrassed expression, he added, "In this matter, the help I can provide you is a promise. If this piece of rotten meat really submits, I can make her child no longer a squib." "What? How is this possible?" Mrs. Zabanai was stunned by this bolt of thunder. "Nothing is impossible. Before you met me, did you believe that the restrictions on your body could be cured? How about this, with this condition, are you sure you can convince her?" Yang Tian asked. "If that's the case, I'm 100% sure I can convince her to join," Mrs. Zabanai said firmly. Looking at Mrs. Zabanai who left in a hurry, Yang Tian breathed a sigh of relief. But he still had no time to rest, he still had too many things to do. In a blink of an eye, Yang Tian, accompanied by his parents, used flow powder to arrive at Nightmare's residence in Nocturne Alley. Because of his arrival, the station was completely boiling. Yang Tian met too many people who made him worried: Aunt Sophia, Liam, Andrew, Sissa, Gemma. Of course, there was also the little guy cook, and the house elf Decca. They had all heard about Yang Tian's experience and were deeply worried about him. Now seeing him alive and kicking in front of everyone, one can imagine how excited they were. Yang Tian was also overwhelmed with emotion. Facing these nightmare members, he seemed to have endless things to say. "Xiao Tian, don't do such dangerous things next time." The one who spoke was Aunt Sophia, with a strong tone of reproach and full of concern. "Don't worry, Aunt Sophia, I know what's going on." Yang Tian responded with a smile. This auntie was still so nagging. "Are you sure? From childhood to adulthood, you have done a lot of unreliable things, such as..." Sophia obviously did not intend to let Yang Tian go easily. "Okay, can we still have fun?" Yang Tian hurriedly spoke out to stop them. If there was anyone who knew everything about his embarrassing moments, besides his parents, it would be Aunt Sophia. Seeing Yang Tian being humiliated, Sophia felt particularly happy and even laughed out loud. What was even more infuriating was that her mother Sophie was also unscrupulously joining in the fun. Forget it, I'm tired. Destroy it. Yang Tian sighed in his heart. Okay, everyone. This mission is extremely important. It's related to how many of our people can get out of the base and live in the sun. Yang Tian's expression suddenly became serious. Upon hearing this, everyone in Nightmare immediately became solemn, their eyes filled with hope. Even though your change of subject was a bit abrupt, I still want to listen reluctantly. Sophie teased. Hearing this, Yang Tian's originally serious face fell again. This kind of inappropriate talk is hard to guard against. Let's talk business first. Yang Wen helped his son out with a serious face. After a pause, he said, as for exposing the black material, there is no time to expose it. Yang Tian was speechless and very angry, right? After some more laughing and joking, everyone finally stopped playing around. Yang Tian also revealed his plan, and after a serious discussion, everyone in the Nightmare group finally started to act with full confidence again. In the cell in the basement, Yang Tian smiled and asked, Ms. Kayla, Eulalia, who was originally in charge of watching over you, went out on a business trip and left you here alone. Are you feeling uncomfortable? Sir, you're worrying too much. After seeing those demons die, Kayla has really lost all desire and is full of gratitude to your organization. I am willing to live here forever and will not cause any trouble to your organization. Kayla said in a slightly flattering tone. Let's be honest with each other. Looking at Kayla, who wanted to defend herself, Yang Tian continued, I'll give you a chance. As long as you submit to me, you can walk out of here and live in the sun again, you can fight that evil organization with a brand new attitude. Hearing this, the hypocritical smile on Kayla's lips froze instantly. She looked carefully at Yang Tian's expression, then smiled bitterly and said, Forget it, I'd rather stay here. If I really go out, I'm worried that you will use me as cannon fodder, and you're worried that I will stab you in the back. It's not easy to integrate into a team. Come on, Kayla, I've already told you to be sincere with each other. If you really don't want to go out, you wouldn't be using these childish words to test me. Yang Tian laughed sarcastically, remember, you only have this one chance today. Submit to me sincerely, and the conditions I just mentioned will remain unchanged. Otherwise, you'd better be prepared to die here. Of course, to give you some confidence, I can tell you a piece of news. The last person who surrendered to me was also a Slytherin, she is, Madame Zabanai. That's impossible. Kayla retorted. I don't have to lie to you, do I? Besides, you're not as important as you think, so I don't intend to dispel these doubts for you. If it weren't for finding some more reliable helpers for Madame Zabanai, I really wouldn't have to make this trip in person. Okay, I've said everything that needs to be said. Now tell me your answer. Don't try to deceive me. A small ceremony will make your loyalty exposed. Yang Tian seemed to have lost the desire to continue the conversation. He just stared at the woman in front of him with his deep eyes without blinking. Okay, you win. I am willing to surrender. After a long stare, Kayla finally gave up and gave up the last struggle. Chapter 168. It should have been completely silent in the Foley Manor late at night, but in the secret room at this moment, there were still 4 people confronting each other, and the atmosphere was very solemn. It's you, Kira, you bastard. Do you know how much trouble you have brought to me and the Lestrange family? How dare you disappear? I'm going to kill you today. The tough guy Sally's took the lead in attacking. If I say that this has nothing to do with me, would you believe it? Kayla, who had already had her soul seed planted in the Nightmare Station, asked bitterly. I will never believe your lies again. Sally's was still furious. Okay, Sally's. I don't need to repeat to you why you are here. Remember what I told you this afternoon, you only have one chance. If you seize it, your lovely son will become a glorious wizard and the well-deserved heir of the Lestrange family. If you don't seize it, your son will still live with the identity of a squib. Mrs. Zabanai interrupted impatiently. Why should I believe you? At least you can show it to me first. Sally argued with disdain. But before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by Mrs. Zabanai without any courtesy. Sally's, you are doing something stupid. I have already said everything that should and should not be said this afternoon. Since you have chosen to stand here, you should be mentally prepared. Now I only say one thing to you, if you want this opportunity, shut up and surrender. If you don't want this opportunity, turn around now, immediately, and get out. The merciless words made Sally silent. She stood there in a daze, her eyes rolling around, looking undecided. Yang Tian, who had been watching coldly from the beginning, finally spoke, "Since you are so hesitant, send him away and don't waste time." The cold words were emotionless, but they were like a sledgehammer that broke Sally's last line of defense. She finally collapsed to the ground, crying bitterly, "Don't go. I agree. I surrender willingly." The Lestrange family manor was quiet and desolate in the early morning, but the bedroom of the young owner, Baston Lestrange, was a peaceful scene. "Mom, I can actually cast magic." Baston burst into tears of excitement. "That's great, my child, ha ha ha." Sally said excitedly, next year I can send you to Hogwarts. Although it's a year late, Mom believes that you can become a great wizard, a true Slytherin. Mom, I won't let you down." Baston promised loudly. After a pause, he asked in confusion, "By the way, Mom, are those 3 cloaked men your friends?" "Yes, kids. They are not only Mom's friends, but also our steadfast allies," Sally said excitedly. But didn't Mother say that the master our family is loyal to is the Dark Lord, and only the most determined Death Eaters will become our allies? Could these 3 people be Death Eaters?" Baston stammered in confusion. "No, child, they are not Death Eaters, but they are more powerful. After all, we have never heard that squibs can be cured artificially, right?" Sally's voice became low, as if she was explaining to her son, or as if she was comforting herself. If the Dark Lord can really return, then maybe we can both." The barely audible whisper just sounded, but it stopped abruptly, followed by a painful groan. "Mom, what's wrong with you?" Baston noticed that his mother was acting strangely and asked quickly. At this moment, Sally had no intention of responding. The pain that was deeply embedded in her bones and the torment in the deepest part of her soul made this tough guy, who claimed to have seen a lot of storms, shudder. She confessed madly and called out her master's name devoutly in her heart. It seemed that only in this way could she feel better. After 10 minutes, when all the pain faded away, Sally hugged her son in her arms and burst into tears. At this moment, she was extremely certain in her heart. Even if the Dark Lord dared to be the enemy of her master, she would definitely fight for her master without hesitation. The haze has dissipated, and the sun is still warm. A new day has begun, and preparations for the war are finally on the agenda. Different from the last battle where they had to beg for help from everyone before preparing, this time the iron triangle of Sally, Kira, and Zabanai produced an unimaginable chemical reaction. When Sally's made up her mind to be a tough guy again and asked for help from all the pure blood families, the nobles led by Lucius jumped up and down as if to witness what an alliance was. They took action upon hearing the news and prepared more actively than Sally's. When Madame Zabanai secretly came to the Ministry of Magic and prepared to negotiate with the director of the Auror office to reach a private agreement, Minister Fudge showed up in person. He said cordially but righteously that the Ministry of Magic was the home of all wizards and that the Aurors would shed their last drop of blood to protect their families. Moreover, he personally assigned 2 teams of the most elite Aurors to participate in this protection operation. Kayla's progress was also smooth. She contacted nearly 100 dark wizards to take charge. Of course, nearly half of them were assigned to her by Yang Tian. Arrange the anti-apparition spell, assign the ambush site, finalize the action code. Although the various forces involved in the operation have not seen each other's true appearance, they still work closely together because they have received the highest order from their respective forces. No matter the cost, give the invaders a ruthless blow. December 12th, Christmas Eve, was supposed to be a traditional holiday for Western families to reunite. However, a group of uninvited guests arrived at Zabanai Manor late at night. The group of more than 30 people were cautious at first, but they relaxed instantly after entering Zabanai Manor. They walked along the way with high spirits and leisurely, as if they were touring their own garden. "Mrs. Zabanai, I'm sorry, we are a little late. Can we go now?" The black-robed leader calmly pushed open the door of the noble and solemn villa and began to speak impatiently. But before he could finish his words, his pupil shrank, because not only was Mrs. Zabanai sitting leisurely on the sofa in front of him, but there were also 2 other ladies sitting on her left and right, looking at him with a joking look on their faces. "It seems that you have made the most foolish decision." The black-robed leader's voice became low and cold, "Then go to hell." Without any hesitation, he took out a white crystal and crushed it. And then, nothing happened, only Mrs. Zabanai's endlessly mocking smile. Chapter 169. Asshole, the restrictions on you have been lifted. How is this possible? The black-robed leader was shocked, but after a brief pause, he said fiercely again, but this can't change your ending at all. And you too. He immediately drew out his wand, and the black-robed wizards around him immediately took a defensive stance as if they had received an order. But they did not attack first, as they instinctively sensed the danger and their hearts sank. Sure enough, the next moment, figures flew down from the tall dome inlaid with colorful gems, or shuttled out from the murals on the ivory-white walls. In just a moment, all the black-robed wizards were surrounded. A pale man with long flowing platinum hair stepped out of the crowd gracefully and said proudly, "I have long heard of the cruel ways your organization treats its subordinates. But I always hope to give a chance to those who cherish life. Now, if you come out on your own, I will give you a way out." It was Lucius who spoke, challenging the dignity of the Malfoy family and treating the pure blood family as your prey is the biggest mistake your organization has made. The words were sonorous and powerful, but after waiting for a long time, no black-robed wizard came out. "Lucius, why are you still pretending? Kill them!" The one who shouted was none other than the hot-headed Sally's. Moreover, she was not the type to just talk and not do anything. As she shouted, the magic wand in her hand had already emitted a fiery red light. Sally's intrusion was like a clarion call for battle, and the two sides started fighting instantly. The black-robed leader threw out a white crystal in an instant, and a huge protective light shield was formed instantly. With the help of the protective shield, the black-robed wizards were able to rush out of the villa gate. But as soon as they got outside, the hearts of the black-robed wizards, who were still in shock, sank. A reinforcement team of more than 30 people appeared in front of them in an instant. Although the attack was not so fierce, it was enough to slow down their progress. They thought they could escape by rushing out of the villa, but the hope that had just risen was shattered at this moment. "We can't get out." Although there were not many people involved in the siege, the black-robed leader still said with melancholy. The next moment, he laughed wildly and said, "He he he, I know what you are waiting for. You still want us to call for support? Do you really think we are stupid?" After saying that, he reached out to his arms with a crazy look on his face. At this moment, a loud thunder suddenly appeared in the sky, lightning struck, and the protective shield shattered instantly. The spells directed at the black-robed wizards suddenly changed from destructive magic to stun spells and petrification spells. The black-robed wizards fell to the ground one by one. But everyone saw that even though they had fainted on the ground, they still held a few black pills in their hands. Fortunately, they were no longer useful. When everything was settled, more and more wizards showed up. Some of them were well dressed, some were dark and mysterious, but without exception, they were all here to help Madame Zabanai. The proud Lucius Malfoy said with resentment, "What a pity, these bastards are so scared that they don't even dare to call for support." Pansy's father, Hector Parkinson, comforted her, "They are just some rats hiding in the sewers. If you scare them, they will hide." "But are you willing to let such a good opportunity go to waste?" Lucius asked repeatedly. "Okay, gentlemen. Let's see if these survivors have any new clues." Rufus Scrimgeour, head of the Auror office, advised. Then he ordered his Aurors to remove the masks of the black-robed wizards one by one. But the next moment, an Auror exclaimed, "This person's face is intact." "What?" Lucius rushed forward with a start, pushed away the Auror in front of him and looked carefully. "Merlin! Isn't this the clerk from Patchy's crucible shop? Why is he here?" It was Sally who screamed. "And there are these few people. They hang out in Nocturne Alley all year round. I've seen them in the bar. Number 67 Nocturne Alley. Yes, that's right, right there." The speaker was a dark wizard who wrapped himself in darkness. But this house number caught Yang Tian's attention. "Oh my goodness! Isn't this the Sarek base, which is less than 200 meters away from the Nightmare Station reported by Wu Qi at that time?" More and more people began to exclaim and provided more and more clues. Mr. Scrimgeour was very busy. As he gave orders, Aurors left the scene in a hurry. They either called for support or started investigations. It seemed that the Auror office would have to cancel its vacation. "Mr. Scrimgeour, there is another key person here." Madame Zabanai walked gracefully, directing two servants to carry Blaise Zabanai, whose body was stiff but whose face was full of fear. "Well, this is what I told you, a spy from an evil organization that infiltrated the magic world is my son. He has been petrified, you can take him away without worry. But I must advise you that these people must have various restrictions on them. If you can't completely remove the restrictions, don't wake them up. Also, even if you have completely removed the restrictions, you must strengthen your precautions. Believe me, they have basically undergone torture training and are determined to die. Of course, this also includes truth serum. Don't give them the opportunity to end their lives. Mrs. Zabanai kept muttering. Please rest assured, Madam Zabanai. We promise that we will pry everything they know out of their mouths. Scrimgeour promised confidently. At this moment, his heart was filled with joy. This time, the harvest might be great. After another round of mopping up, the Zabanai Manor, which was originally crowded with people, gradually became deserted, until finally, only about 100 people stayed there. They patrolled everywhere according to the instructions, and surrounded the entire manor. Master, have you already guessed that there will be someone among the black-robed wizards whose faces have not been destroyed? Kira asked impatiently in a secret room in Zabanai Manor. It's just a guess. The information we got from the last attack on the orphanage was that this fake Blaze Zabanai was handed over to the intelligence department. And the one who wanted Mrs. Zabanai to be a spy is most likely the intelligence department. Just think about it, the intelligence department has people in charge of operations. They need to hide and have an identity that can be seen in the light, so that they can find out more information. Of course, this is just speculation, but it doesn't stop us from trying it a little, right? Yang Tian said with a smile. Then the master also speculated that the other party would not ask for help. Your order was too decisive. Mrs. Zabanai also exclaimed. There's no need for boring flattery. Salok has suffered so many times. If he still blindly implements the tactic of adding fuel to the fire, this organization would have been destroyed long ago. Yang Tian said expressionlessly. Don't be angry, master. Today is a day worth celebrating. With so many survivors, as long as the Ministry of Magic seizes the opportunity, the so-called good days of Sarek will be over. We will soon be able to completely destroy them. Sally was unusually happy today and comforted in a rough voice. Yang Tian smiled bitterly upon hearing this. It's not that simple. Just wait and see. Catching these people is already the limit. Sarek will immediately cut off all the clues related to them, and the Ministry of Magic will end up with nothing. No way. Mrs. Zabanai exclaimed, then what should we do? The panic in her tone could not be concealed at all. If there was anyone among the three who knew and feared Sarek the most, it would definitely be Mrs. Zabanai. Yang Tian smiled when he heard this and gave Mrs. Zabanai a reassuring look before confidently saying, everything is going according to plan. You guys have performed so well today, it's time to fly your own flag. Chapter 170. December 12th, Christmas Day. Rita Skeeter's article titled The Struggle of Three Slytherin Women Caused Further Turmoil in the Already Restless Wizarding World. In this article, Rita uses her sharp pen to tell the story of three women who graduated from Slytherin and who, despite the endless persecution of an evil organization, still struggled to survive, fearless of life and death, and fought against fate. The three women have three completely different fates, each with its own sadness and helplessness. Mrs. Zabanai was held hostage by an evil organization for her mother. She was fed poison and cursed by the evil organization. Even her so-called son was a spy arranged by the evil organization. It was not until her mother's death that she, with no worries, fought the evil organization to the end even at the cost of her life. Sally's Lestrange should have been the glory of one of the few ancient pure-blood families in the world. But she was laughed at by everyone because her child was a squib. But what was the real situation? After her husband and relatives were imprisoned in Azkaban, she, an orphan and a widow, was unable to protect her son's safety, which led to her child, Colliver Lestrange, being drained of his wizarding talent by the black-robed wizard using evil magic. That's right, she watched her innocent child turn from a magic genius into a squib. But those demons still refused to let her and her child go, and even tried to kidnap her child again. It was that time that she chose to fight hard, and the major pure-blood families united and gave the black-robed wizards a head-on blow. This time, the reason why she stood up bravely was because a powerful wizard appeared and healed her son's wizarding abilities that had been deprived of him. She also had the courage to stand in front of the world again, and she dared to say loudly that she was worthy of the Parkinson family and even more worthy of the Lestrange family. Kira, who was not very famous before, showed her weird face of half angel and half devil in the magic photos inserted in the article, and also exposed her unknown tragic experience. She and her husband studied at Hogwarts together, from knowing each other to knowing each other, from knowing each other to falling in love, from falling in love to staying together. They should have lived a happy life, but because of the trap of the black-robed devil, her husband died and she fell into the hands of those devils. She thought she would become their experimental material and would eventually die in endless torture and pain. However, she escaped by chance during the transportation. It was also because of her tip-off that the Pure Blood family got the specific information that the Black Robe Wizard would attack the descendants of the Lestrange family, which led to the last hardy battle between the Pure Blood family and the Black Robe Wizard. Although the three devastated women had different experiences, they eventually chose the same path of struggle. They also appreciated each other because of their firm beliefs, became close friends, and worked hard for a common goal. The three women's legendary and inspiring experiences were well known to the entire wizarding world through Rita's writings, and they became role models for many witches. More and more wizards sent them letters of condolence, and more wizards came to visit Zabanai Manor out of admiration. The three women became a new banner in the wizarding world. At the same time, Rita Skeeter has become a close friend and die-hard fan of the three women. I believe that it won't be long before this female reporter, who is known for her sharp pen, will become another important name card of the three-woman alliance. On the other hand, after Rita Skeeter's report swept the entire wizarding world, a rumor also took advantage of this favorable wind and began to ferment and spread quietly. All wizards who heard of this rumor felt a chill down their spines and their hair stood on end. The rumor claimed that the captured black-robed wizards were from an evil organization, and that they were using the bodies of wizards as materials for research, on the one hand to explore the source of the wizard's magic power, and on the other hand to research elixirs that could increase lifespan for the bigwigs behind the scenes. The purpose of extracting the magic talents of children under the age of 11 was to make elixirs that could increase lifespan. The rumor listed the extraction ratio in detail, saying that if the magic talent is extracted once, the child will awaken the wizard ability 1 year later. If the magic talent is extracted twice, the child will awaken the wizard ability 5 years later, and if the magic talent is extracted 3 times, the child will permanently lose the ability to cast spells and become a complete dud. Colliver Lestrange was unfortunate. His magical talent was drained away 3 times. If nothing unexpected happened, he would have become a complete squib and lived a mediocre life. But at the same time, he was undoubtedly lucky. A great wizard cured him and he completely recovered his ability to cast spells. Finally, this rumor left a message: Sally's Lestrange is the only person who has connection with the great wizard. Once the rumor spread, it swept through the entire British wizarding world like a tsunami, and even some wizards abroad were talking about it. Many pure blood families were in danger, but the big families were fine. They strengthened their guard and sent a large number of people to protect their descendants. But many members of small families were in a miserable situation. Their weak strength was not enough to support such a large-scale guard expenditure, and they were caught in a dilemma for a while. At the same time, many squibs, or families or households that had squibs in the past, were also moved. They spared no effort to find evidence that their magical talents had been taken away, and sent letters, visited homes, or issued statements, hoping that Sally's would reveal the true identity of the great wizard. For a while, Sally's Lestrange was pushed to the forefront of public opinion. It was at this time that Mrs. Zabanai stepped forward and issued a joint statement by the three women. 1. The three women will form an alliance from now on to deal with the invasion and persecution of the evil organization. 2. From now on, the alliance is recruiting member families. Anyone interested can go to Zabanai Manor for detailed discussion. 11. The alliance is willing to provide shelter to the member families of the alliance. The courtyard on the west side of Zabanai Manor will become a paradise for the heirs of weak pure blood families until they enter school at the age of 4. Sally said that it was indeed a mysterious wizard who saved her child and made him reawaken his wizarding abilities, but this wizard had done Sally a great favor and he was very low-key, so his true identity could not be revealed. 5. For any member of the alliance who has made outstanding contributions to the development of the alliance, Sally will consider introducing him or her to a mysterious wizard. Such a statement can be said to have caused a great stir. Many weak families like Rootless Duckweed were ecstatic and asked to join. A large number of solitary wizards and squibs without families also came in an endless stream, hoping to join the camp of the three women. Some ancient families with deep roots of squibs also visited one after another, hoping to get an audience with the mysterious wizard through negotiation. A brand new force flourished in just a few days because of this naked interest binding and the unique rarity of the commodity. As for how sincere these families or individuals are, and how the three women can completely subdue them, it all depends on the three women's own skills. Chapter 171. Two flowers bloom, each with its own beauty. Let's get back to Yang Tian. No matter how chaotic the outside world was, the Furley Manor still maintained a festive atmosphere. The plan had already been made. After the battle on Christmas Eve, Yang Tian returned to Furley Manor and concentrated on enjoying his Christmas vacation. Sophia and her husband brought little cook and the house elf Dika to the manor to celebrate Christmas together, which was naturally very lively. The most important thing about Christmas is naturally opening presents under the Christmas tree. Imagining that this is his first Christmas after entering Hogwarts, Yang Tian's heart is full of expectations. What surprises will his good friends give him? Wow, what a genius, he actually made Hannah's protective bracelet. Yang Tian said to himself in surprise after opening the first package. Wow, is this a mutant devil vine? Yang Tian picked up a transparent glass bottle from another package and observed it in amazement. It seems to have a certain resistance to light. Although it is not obvious, this research direction is indeed good. Is this Neville's research direction? Humph, the Paddle sisters only gave me one Christmas gift. I'll see how I'll mock them when I get back. Having said that, the smile on Yang Tian's face betrayed his good mood. It's actually a soul notebook. Can this method of mind calibration really temper the soul? The progress of the experiment of these two sisters is surprisingly fast. Next, as the gift packages were unpacked one by one, Yang Tian's smile became brighter and brighter. Daphne and Pansy's bloodline research notes, Hermione's rune research notes, Zhongchu's flying spell research notes, Penelope's human body transformation exploration notes. How could this be a Christmas gift? This was clearly a premeditated show of achievement, okay? But Yang Tian was genuinely happy, because at that moment, he understood what his friends were thinking. They didn't want to be a burden, and didn't want to be left behind. They wanted to keep him company, and they hoped to help him. Yang Tian, with a surge of emotion, casually opened a large package, but in the next moment, his hand trembled with shock, and he threw a transparent glass bottle directly out. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, and figured out the reason in an instant, and cast a floating spell before the bottle fell to the ground, thus avoiding a tragedy. It's not that Yang Tian is timid, it's that he really didn't expect someone to give him a curled winged demon as a Christmas gift. Well, how could he not guess who such a talented person is? Hagrid. When Yang Tian thought of this big guy, his heart warmed up again. He could almost imagine Hagrid's inexplicable surprise when he saw the Christmas gift he gave him. Of course, he also looked forward to the surprised expressions of his friends when they saw his gift. He had sent the gifts to his friends yesterday, along with an email about his schedule, to Meng Meng Jiao. A piece of meteorite for Hannah, a magical plant seed from China for Neville, a heartlock defense magic weapon for the Paddle sisters, a hairpin for Hermione to enhance her memory, and a protective robe for Penelope. Each one was carefully prepared by him. Of course, he also prepared Christmas gifts for the Weasley brothers, senior sisters Elena, Angelina, many Ravenclaw classmates, and professors. I believe everyone will be surprised. After opening all the gifts, Yang Tian walked out of the room and took little Cook and Dika to play together. It was a rare leisure time. Of course, Yang Tian would not really be a hands-off boss. Meng Meng Jiao became the busiest person during the holiday. One report letter after another allowed Yang Tian to know the direction of the situation clearly. On the other hand, in the Hogwarts gamekeeper's cottage, Hagrid hummed a little tune happily, and his big hands stroked the little leopard with sharp horns in front of him from time to time. From the moment he opened the Christmas gift sent by Yang Tian, other gifts were no longer important. Look at this little fellow in front of you. He is not big, and seems to be not much bigger than a cat. He is obviously born not long ago, and he still walks with a limp, and even falls to the ground if he is not careful. His naive appearance in the infancy stage almost melts Hagrid's heart. The little leopard suddenly cried out, as if conveying important information. But seeing the big guy's ignorance, the little guy got angry and started biting without knowing the severity of the situation. OAA. Hagrid searched around in a hurry. Oh, it turns out that the little guy is hungry. Don't worry, let me see what you can eat now. The big man flipped through the manual carefully. It's best to drink leopard milk and animal meat now? Wow, can we eat meat now? Great, I'll prepare it right away. After saying that, he turned and left. Hagrid was worthy of being a gamekeeper. After a while, the standard unicorn baby meal in the maintenance manual was ready. Looking at the little unicorn wolfing down the food, Hagrid felt an infinite sense of satisfaction. Just when the big and the small were enjoying the food and the big and the small, there was a knock on the door of the cabin. "Hagrid, are you there? Ron and I are here to visit you." Hearing Harry's voice, Hagrid was delighted again and hurried forward to open the door. "Merry Christmas, Hagrid!" Harry and Ron shouted in unison. "Merry Christmas, Harry and Ron!" Hagrid smiled shyly and responded, "Come inside and sit down. It's still quite cold now." After Harry and Ron were seated, Hagrid began to entertain them warmly. "Come, try the new rock cakes. I promise they will be more authentic than last time." The two little guys looked at each other, and they could clearly see the lingering fear in each other's eyes. They could never forget the painful experience of almost having their teeth knocked out when they first visited Hagrid's hut. However, they had already thought of a way to deal with it. After taking the rock cake, the two of them just pretended to take a bite, and then they couldn't wait to pull Hagrid to chat about campus fun, news in the wizarding world, the current situation. The three of them were talking and laughing very happily. But at this moment, Ron, who was looking around, suddenly opened his eyes wide and asked in surprise, "Wow, what is this?" Harry was also attracted by Ron's words and looked in the direction of the voice, only to see the well-fed little leopard strolling towards him. "This creature is called a unicorn, a magical animal from China." Hagrid proudly introduced, "This is Yang Tian's Christmas gift to me." "Is it Yang Tian from Ravenclaw?" When Ron mentioned this person, his vigilance immediately reached the maximum, and he started talking nonsense. "Then you better be careful, the things he sends may be terrifying." But before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Hagrid's slightly angry words, "It's not nice for you to say that, Ron. I know Yang Tian. I have fought side by side with him and those damn black-robed wizards. He is someone you can trust with your back. That only shows that you lack the most basic understanding of him. Harry and I both believe that this man has serious problems and is a dangerous person. My father has made a similar assessment and he wants us to stay away from this man." Ron said seriously. "Oh? Do you think so, Harry?" Hagrid was a little angry at this time, but he still restrained himself and asked, "Then can you tell me what serious problems he has? How much do you know about him?" Harry's eyes were slightly evasive, and he stammered, "That should be it. After all, even Ron's father." "Harry, I don't know where Arthur Weasley's dislike for Yang Tian comes from. I just want to ask, what did he do wrong? Can you tell me?" Harry was speechless when he heard that, but Ron was still holding on. He said mysteriously, "Don't be fooled by his superficiality. He went out for a night out a week after school started. I don't know what bad intentions he has. Also, aren't you surprised? Why are all the students in the school fine, but only he is in danger? There must be a huge conspiracy." Looking at Hagrid's eyes as if he was an idiot, Ron couldn't say any more. Hagrid no longer had any interest in talking to Ron. He just said to Harry earnestly, "Harry, I hope you won't always use 'I heard, I thought' when judging whether a person is good or bad. Only when you actually come into contact with that person, you are qualified to judge a person, right? Talking bad about people behind their backs is really not a good habit." At this point, the lively atmosphere in Hagrid's hut was completely gone. It seemed that they really didn't agree with each other, so Harry and Ron sat in the hut for a while and then left in a hurry. Chapter 172. Whether it was the publication of Rita Skeeter's report or the formation of a new alliance headed by Madame Zabanai, this holiday was destined not to be peaceful. For example, in the study of the Lestrange family manor, Hector Parkinson was having a serious conversation with his sister. "Sally's, I have to say that your decision now is not wise at all." Hector said straight to the point, "Don't forget that you represent the Lestrange family and the Parkinson family. The Malfoy family is our natural ally. Your current behavior is to split our inherent power map." "Oh, my stupid brother. The Malfoy family is indeed a natural ally. But this does not mean that we have to become vassals of the Malfoy family," Sally said with a mocking look on her face. "Remember my poor Colliver? When his life was threatened, how much I paid in exchange for the help of the pure blood family. And you, my cold-blooded and stupid brother, didn't even say a word for your sister. Is this what you call a natural ally? Is this what you call me representing the Parkinson family? You should understand the rules of a pure blood family. It's impossible to fight with all your might for a squib." Hector's voice was low, but unquestionable. "Cliff is not a squib. You bastard! Sally roared angrily, Cliff Lestrange, come to me immediately and let your bastard uncle see if you are a squib. The voice was deafening, but how far could it be heard? However, it was enough for the house elf Sanchali who was waiting outside the door to hear it. Not long after, Colliver walked into the study with an elegant pace, only to see his mother and uncle glaring at each other. He did not rush to greet them, but directly drew out his wand and threw a curse in the direction of Hector. Asshole, you little bastard can actually cast a spell. Hector dodged in a panic. He then drew out his wand and roared, although this is magical, it is not a reason for you to attack your biological uncle. Today I will teach you these rules. Sally's was furious when she heard this. She drew out her wand and shouted, you can try, Hector. See if you can escape. Colliver bowed gracefully as if nothing had happened and said, oh, my dear uncle, you misunderstood. Mother ordered me to cast a spell to prove that I am not a squib. Didn't I come here to perform the spell for the first time? As for the fact that I almost attacked you, it was only because I had just started learning magic and was not very skilled. Please don't think too much about it. Looking at the angry Sallys and the tough Colliver who seemed to have inherited his sister's teachings, Hector decisively changed the subject, so this mysterious wizard really exists? Is it possible for him to serve the Parkinson family? At the end, his eyes became more and more fiery. My foolish brother, you are so delusional, aren't you afraid of offending someone the family can't afford to offend? Looking at Hector with an ugly face, Sally said decisively, okay, don't have unrealistic dreams. The establishment of a new alliance is inevitable, don't try to do anything. Besides, you should be happy about it. Maybe, after your base collapses accidentally, my alliance will still be a way out for the family, right? Hector was completely silent. Although his sister looked rough and unruly, she was never a fool. Now that things had come to this, what else could he say? He could only leave a way out for the family. At almost the same time, in Malfoy Manor in Wiltshire, England, Lucius was also having a conversation with his son. Draco, you are a smart boy. Have you heard about that brat Blaise Zabinai? Lucius asked tentatively. Yes, father. I never thought that this kid who usually flatters me would actually be a spy sent by an evil organization to infiltrate the wizarding world. This is terrible. Draco shuddered as he talked about this. Do you know how to get along with your classmates when you return to school? Lucius asked his son seriously. Draco was stunned for a moment. He said carefully, didn't father tell me when school started in September? To build a good relationship with Harry and win the hearts of the Slytherins with the strength of the family. Has anything changed? Lucius couldn't help but smile bitterly and sighed, my child, the world changes too fast. Our family has indeed encountered some difficulties. First of all the family assets in the Muggle world have been frozen. Of course, this is not that important. As long as we want, we can always get back what we lost. After all, we are wizards. But the family alliance was played around by this kid named Blaise Zabinai, creating obvious cracks, which is something we cannot accept in any way. Father, are you talking about Pansy Parkinson? How come? Draco looked confused, didn't I take the lead in visiting them and solve the crisis for them? Shouldn't they be grateful? From our perspective, it is understandable, but from the perspective of the Parkinson family, it is not. They will think that when there was still room for maneuver, we stood on Blaise Zabinai's side and became enemies with the Parkinson family. It was not until the situation became out of control that we stood on the side of the Parkinson family again. If I were a member of the Parkinson family, I would probably see this as a conspiracy by the Malfoy family to suppress the Parkinson family's reputation within the alliance. Of course, if it weren't for the strong rise of the alliance of Madame Zabinai, Sally, and Kira, perhaps this rift would have been slowly repaired with the passage of time, the strength of the Malfoy family and the interactions between the families. But now, everything has changed. This three-person alliance has grown too fast. They are flexible and have achieved unexpected results, but they also have the support of some families that they are eager to gain. With this kind of ups and downs, we are actually at a disadvantage. Draco looked at his father solemnly. He had never heard his father analyze things so thoroughly and frankly. Perhaps the family had really reached a critical moment? For a moment, he even felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. Father, what can I do for the family? Should I further repair the relationship with Pansy and Daphne? It would be best if we could repair the relationship, but there is a key person here, and that is Yang Tian. Seeing his son's hatred and fear when he heard the name, Lucius sighed and continued, according to your uncle Hector, Yang Tian and his family will formally visit the Parkinson family during this holiday, and the reason why this trip was finally finalized was entirely because of the strong request of Pansy and that crazy woman Sally's. You have to understand that the Malfoys, Parkinsons, Goyles, Crabs, and even the Lestranges are all traditional allies. But Sally's alone can influence the decisions of the Lestranges and has a great say in the Parkinsons. I am even certain that after the holiday, the Parkinsons will be hedging their bets. Lucius was still explaining the current situation to Malfoy. On the other hand, the Green Grass family is also a traditional ally of the Foley family. If this emerging alliance eventually comes together with the Foley family with Yang Tian as the bond, the Malfoy family will be completely marginalized. So, I hope that you, my son, can find your way into Hogwarts as soon as possible and integrate into Yang Tian's circle. Believe me, the children in this circle will play an important role in the future. But what Lucius never expected was that Draco actually hit back at this time. Father, are you exaggerating? Chapter 173. Draco was very emotional at this time. In that circle, the only Slytherins are Pansy and Daphne. Other families like Neville and Hannah are not the same as us. I won't talk about the members of other small families and foreign friends. But there are disgusting mudbloods there. Father, this is simply unbearable. Where is the glory of our Malfoy family? Where is the blood of our Malfoy family? Draco, you really disappoint me. Lucius was rarely angry. You don't understand what it means to be a qualified descendant of the Malfoy family. Remember what he said when you attended Yang Tian's birthday party? The Malfoy family itself has mixed blood descendants. Completely ignoring Draco's collapsed outlook, Lucius continued to roar, a true descendant of the Malfoy family must be wise and judge the situation. What is pure blood glory? It is just a key to integrate into the pure blood circle. When the Dark Lord is strong, we are staunch pure bloods. When Muggles are strong, we are not afraid to become friends with them. The prosperity of the family is the key. Okay, I've explained the interests involved very clearly. Let's proceed as planned after school starts. I've already reached a deal with Hector, and Pansy will provide you with appropriate assistance. After saying that, Lucius left quietly. This speech completely confused Draco. He stood there in silence for a long time. Perhaps from this moment on, he began to understand what a real Malfoy should do. A similar scene also took place in the Longbottom family's ancestral home, and Neville's conversation with his grandmother Augusta Lombard seemed unpleasant. Grandma, Yang Tian is my best friend in Hogwarts, why can't I invite him to my home? This was the first time Neville spoke to his grandmother in a questioning tone. Although he was still a little timid, his dissatisfaction was clearly expressed. Neville, I think I have made it clear to you. That kid is not as simple as he seems. He is very dangerous. You should stay away from him. Augusta said sternly as always. No, Yang Tian didn't say the same thing as you said. He taught me to be strong, to be hardworking, to fight, too much. He taught me so many things. Without him, perhaps I wouldn't even have the courage to make my first bottle of potion, perhaps my poor academic performance would have crushed me long ago, perhaps now I'm still being laughed at and looked down upon by my classmates, and the danger you mentioned, I'm sorry, I don't feel it at all. Neville was struggling hard. I never thought that in just a few months, my Neville has learned to talk back. This little guy named Yang Tian is really capable. Augusta responded with increasing dissatisfaction. Grandma, no matter what you say, I am speaking based on the facts I have seen, I am not like you, speculating about others with arrogance and prejudice. Yang Tian is my friend, no, he is my brother. He was, is, and will be. Neville seemed to have exhausted all his strength to say this, his tone was heavy, but very sure. He stood up clumsily, but still did not forget to salute Grandma, and then turned away. Ah, I have to say, that child is really puzzling. He completely captured my grandson in such a short time. Looking at his grandson going away, Augusta muttered helplessly, but whether you are a real little devil or there is another secret, it will not prevent you from being like a disaster. Wherever you are, there is danger. The only flesh and blood of the Longbottom family should not be placed in danger. The turmoil in the wizarding world eventually affected Foley Manor. Yang Tian, who had originally planned to take a complete vacation, was forced to resume business, but there were some things he was still willing to do. For example, he secretly met with Humbert and Brayden who had infiltrated the Ministry of Magic, and planned a series of subsequent promotions. After all, with Madame Zabanai and several other strong supporters, it would not be difficult to get promoted 1 or 2 levels without exposing their backgrounds. Of course, Yang Tian would not forget Ramesses and Peregrine, both of whom were really capable. Ever since he entered the Furley family's store in Diagon Alley, he had been making steady progress, and after 2 years of hard work, he had made many friends. After repeated screening, there were indeed 3 or 4 good friends who had the potential to become Nightmare's new blood. Although there were not many of them, they were reliable. If they could experience 1 or 2 more actual combat missions, I believe they could also enter Nightmare's reserve force, right? In addition, accompanied by his parents, Yang Tian visited the Green Grass family, the Zabanai family, the Lestrange family, the Parkinson family in turn, demonstrating his closeness to each of the major families. Meng Menjiao's report also showed that the alliance plan was being implemented very smoothly. Especially the idea of a kindergarten in the Muggle world was praised as a stroke of genius by everyone involved in the conspiracy. The mysterious and great wizard also caused a huge wave in the wizarding world, and everything was developing in a good direction. Now that everything was stable, Yang Tian would not be particularly concerned about the development of this alliance. Madame Zabanai, Kayla, and Sally's, any one of his 3 new capable subordinates was a brilliant person. They were capable, skillful, well-connected, and loyal. What else could he not let go of? And when necessary, the Fry family and the Green Grass family would not just sit there and watch, right? Thinking about the nightmare of hiding here and there, and looking at the good situation in front of him, Yang Tian smiled confidently. How long has it been? In another year or 2, I will make you, Saruk, pay the price. Although the vacation is wonderful, it is short after all. In the blink of an eye, the time to go back to school is approaching. Yang Tian did not return to school on the Hogwarts train, but arrived at Hogsmeade Village with the Yang family's main force 1 day in advance. This was unavoidable, as he needed to preside over the handover of work between Elder Xia and Elder Li in advance. After all, Old Xia stayed in Hogsmeade for more than a month, and during that time he and the young master fought against Saruk twice. Old Li was almost crying with envy. The Yang family team quickly entered a property on the edge of Hogsmeade Village. This was not the residence of Xiaolao and others, but a secret property of the Green Grass family in Hogsmeade Village. Xiaolao had come with such a grand momentum before, so their residence was naturally well known to everyone. Before, they were outside the storm circle, doing minor things, but now the situation has changed suddenly. The new alliance has emerged, and the Fulai family has also come to the foreground and the center of the storm by relying on the changes in the relationship between all parties. As the station of the guard team of Yang Tian, a descendant of the Fulai family, it will definitely be watched by countless eyes, which is too conspicuous. After entering the station, everyone just settled down for a while, and Meng Jiao flew out to report the news. About 10 or 20 minutes later, Xiaolao, Cai Yulianjiu, Wu Qi, Eulalia, and an old man from China who had never been seen before entered the building one after another. After not seeing each other for a long time, everyone couldn't help but exchange greetings. Elder Xia and Elder Li were so excited that they patted each other's shoulders vigorously. Perhaps only they themselves knew what they had been carrying all these years. Kai would not just sit there and watch the 2 elders sigh, but introduced Yang Tian, young master, this is the torture expert we transferred from the punishment hall, nicknamed Grass Snake. Yang Tian always respected his family members, and he quickly stepped forward to greet them. The Grass Snake also quickly bowed in return. Chapter 174. After a lively discussion, everyone finally got down to business. Young master, all the personnel have been reviewed before. This is the list of the youth army. Old Xia said, and took out a list and handed it over. Yang Tian looked carefully. Wow, there were more than 40 people. But what did the black frame mean? Yang Tian looked at the crowd with doubt. The drunkard, the leader of the 5 idiots, quickly explained, after our careful investigation, we found that more than 30 of them have died, so they are marked with a black frame. Dead? Yang Tian asked in surprise, who killed him? Is there another force against Saruk? He didn't die of illness, but of illness. Juki explained quickly, based on the information provided by the young master and the memory data of the supreme commander of the youth army named Sebastian, we can draw the following conclusions. The mortality rate of the youth army is very high, and it is accompanied by fatal sequelae. The success rate of ordinary people awakening wizard abilities is extremely low, but even if a squib awakens wizard abilities, it seems that no one has lived for more than 15 years. 15 years? Yang Tian was shocked. Doesn't that mean that people will die in their 20s? Then why create such a group of wizards? We don't know the specific details yet. After all, this list covers a very long time span, involves too wide a geographical area, and our investigation time is too short. However, the wizards on this list have one thing in common, that is, in their short lives, their relatives and friends will basically encounter accidents or die of illness. Therefore, this may very well be an important reason why these wizards were created. The drunkard continued to explain. Have all the undercover personnel in Hogwarts been investigated? Yang Tian was too lazy to look at the list and asked directly. The drunkard quickly replied, comparing the list, the people we can confirm so far are Lee Jordan, Blaise Zabinai, and a 6th-year Ravenclaw boy named Violet Capet. Who? Yang Tian stood up in shock. Violet Capet. The drunkard repeated weakly. Yang Tian was completely upset, because he was too familiar with this name, and this person, because Yang Tian could see him at the weekly Transfiguration Club gathering. That Ravenclaw senior who always had a friendly smile, was well-mannered, and had a scholarly image was actually a spy for Saruk? How was this possible? Although they had not met much, this senior had already left a good enough impression on him. Yang Tian instantly felt his mentality explode. Wait! Just these 3 people? After a moment of confusion, Yang Tian discovered a new problem. Yes, there are only these 3 people. The drunkard replied. That's not right. Who is the one in the Hufflepuff common room? Isn't he a member of the brigade? Moreover, 5 owls flew out of the Hufflepuff common room at that time. Apart from the one from Manchester University, Lee Jordan, Blaise Zabinai, and Violet Capet, who was the other one for? Isn't he a student? Yang Tian raised questions one by one, and the faces of the people around him gradually became embarrassed, because no one could answer them. Looking at everyone's faces, Yang Tian quickly comforted them. Everyone has done a great job, especially Senior Cao Shi, who is indeed a master of torture. He got the result so quickly. Cao Shi was naturally grateful when he heard this. He quickly said modestly, this is not just my credit. Ms. Eulalia helped a lot. She is very good at interrogation and obtaining intelligence. Eulalia didn't say anything, but smiled mischievously at Yang Tian. They were both nightmare comrades, so why should we say more about the friendship between them? After a pause, Grass Snake continued, in addition, I suggest a second round of interrogation for everyone, especially the old man Sebastian. His willpower is too strong, and he must have received special training. I think the current interrogation is still at a stalemate. He just released a small part of his memory, just like throwing out some bait, making us think that he has completely given up the struggle. Hearing this, Yang Tian looked up at Eulalia. When he saw her nod, he smiled and said, I don't know much about torture. You can discuss it with Eulalia. Just tell me if there is any progress. Seeing that the general progress of the interrogation had been reported, Elder Xia asked, Young Master, based on the information we have obtained so far, we can almost conclude that the University of Manchester is a very important base in the hands of the Saruk Intelligence Department. Should we cut it off? What do you think about this issue? Yang Tian did not rush to draw a conclusion, but instead kicked the ball back. In fact, we are also very conflicted. Should we take action? We are afraid of alerting the enemy and cutting off our only clue at the moment. Should we not take action? We are afraid that they will retreat on their own initiative. Old Xia sighed helplessly. Elder Li heard this and waved his hand indifferently, don't rush to do it. Leave the tracking to my people. Let 5 idiots cooperate with Mad Dog to carry out the mission. You all know Mad Dog. He is an old subordinate of mine. Although he is not very good at tracking, his tracking skills are still impressive. I don't believe that anyone can escape from him. Since Grandpa Li said so, I am very relieved. However, there is a popular transmission method in the Western magic world called the Flow Network. You should pay special attention to it. Yang Tian then told him some information about the Flow Network. If they transfer in this way, how to track them will be a big problem. But in the previous attacks, we didn't see them using this method. Old Xia asked puzzled. How should I put it? This is just a guess. There are both advantages and risks in establishing a separate flow network independent of the Ministry of Magic. Installing a non-flow network is equivalent to installing another door. You can leave through this door, and others can also enter the base through this door. The risk here is actually quite large. Yang Tian explained at the right time. So, it is unlikely that a relatively independent and hidden base, or even a low-level stronghold, is connected to a non-road network. Otherwise, if one is not careful, the enemy can attack directly by occupying the stronghold. On the contrary, if a higher-level intelligence agency is pursued with high mobility, it is still very likely to be established. Of course, I am just guessing, and you still need to investigate the specific situation carefully. Young master, rest assured. I think that even if it is a so-called non-road network, it is impossible to transmit without any reason. There must be traces to follow. Let Mad Dog try it first. Mr. Li was very optimistic. By the way, old Xia, besides the base of Manchester University, have you not found any other important bases? Haha, I knew you were itching to do something, old Li. Well, we did find out a few bases responsible for the operation. But when we went to explore based on the information, we found that they were already deserted. By the way, how are those 8 little devils who wanted to surrender doing now? Yang Tian suddenly interrupted. I am trying to guide them, hoping to further strengthen their submission. You know, those little devils are very cunning. Eulalia smiled. Okay, I'll come to see them after you finish your training. This will save me a lot of energy. Yang Tian said happily. Then Yang Tian discussed the follow-up matters in detail with the 2 elders, and then hurried back to Hogwarts. Chapter 175. On the same day, in the magnificent office of the Sarek headquarters deep underground in the suburbs of London, there were 3 red-robed wizards sitting there. Except for Russell, the other 2 red-robed wizards were all old men with grey beards. However, one of the fat old men teased, Russell, you've really embarrassed yourself this time, haha. I told you a long time ago that all the people you promoted in recent years are good for nothings, but you still don't believe it. So what? In just a few days, the intelligence department has problems again. You really opened our eyes. Ha ha ha. Alger, can you be more careful? The people I lost here belong to the entire Salok. Russell said dissatisfiedly. Oh, don't say that. They're just some garbage that can't even do a little thing. How can you call it a loss? It's just cleaning up the waste. Another old man also said. Eden is absolutely right. These scum are a disgrace to Sarek. They don't deserve to live in this world. Alger said viciously. It's not as simple as you think. I've fought with them a few times, and I'm just wondering why this team keeps using Eastern talismans. Russell tried desperately to make up for his failure, trying not to look so ugly. Haven't you ever thought about those Eastern wizards who fought against us more than a decade ago? Come on, Russell. You dare to say anything to save face. They used more than just Eastern talismans. I also saw those passages. The Dark Lord's little follower used very advanced soul magic. He is in control of the war situation. So, don't make excuses for the incompetence of your men. Alger responded bluntly. That's right, Russell. Many people have seen that little follower. He can't possibly join the Eastern Wizard, right? Moreover, not only are your subordinates incompetent, your own mistakes are also fatal. Eden's words were even more merciless. Eden, explain yourself clearly. What does this have to do with me? It's a fatal mistake? If you don't explain yourself clearly today, I will never let you go. Russell was completely anxious. Then I really have to talk to you today. The 3 of us are at the same level, and this office should have been yours. You should also be in charge of all local operations. But what have you done for your own magic practice? You inexplicably promoted all the middle-level backbones by 1 level, but left the key positions vacant by the original middle level to muggles. Then you pushed your blue-clad deputy to your position to manage for you. You are free now, but the most direct result is that the entire organization is seriously out of touch. Have you thought about the consequences? Eden asked almost angrily. Can this be blamed on me? You didn't participate in the negotiations between the organization and the Muggle Intelligence Department? Did I make this ridiculous decision? Russell asked back dissatisfiedly. But you can refuse to execute it. You are the only one among all the red-clothed people who compromised. This is the proof. Alger said disdainfully. You are not in the mainland, so you have no idea how much pressure I am under. The royal family agreed, and the higher-ups agreed. They sent people to implement it 3 times a day. What can I say? Russell started to complain, but after thinking about it, he felt it was meaningless and casually changed the subject. Okay, let's not talk about those old accounts anymore, let's talk about what to do now. What's so difficult about this? Everyone disappears. Whether they are on vacation or on a mission, withdraw and let them think they have won. We will accumulate strength and give them a hard blow. Eden said nonchalantly, by the way, if those useless subordinates of yours really have nothing to do, they can come and help me. You look down on my useless subordinates so much, yet you still need their help. Russell asked angrily. After a pause, he continued, tell me, what's the matter? You know, my people are mainly responsible for overseas treasure hunting. Last time your people went to Albania to look for the Dark Lord but to no avail, they accidentally reported a shocking news. That forest does not seem to be simple, and it seems to have buried unimaginable things. In fact, it is understandable. If there was no certain sense, why would the Dark Lord hide there to recuperate, right? Eden was happy at this time. So? It's just a forest. You have a lot of people under you, so it shouldn't be difficult to explore it, right? Russell was even more confused. How can it be just exploration? Since there are unknown benefits, let's take over this piece of land completely. After all, we don't know if that thing can be moved. Maybe it will become a research base in the future. You want to take over Albania? What a big appetite! Russell exclaimed. Stop talking nonsense and just tell me whether you can help or not. Eden was too lazy to talk nonsense. I can help you. But we have to agree in advance that when we counterattack our homeland, you and Alger have to help me. Russell finally decided. No problem, deal. On the other hand, when Yang Tian returned to Hogwarts, it was already 7 o'clock in the evening. But he did not rush to the dormitory, but rushed to the astronomy tower. During this period of time, he had been very hard to teach his grandfather astronomy knowledge. Now he was eager to see his astronomy teacher, Professor Sinistra. Professor, I'm back. Yang Tian shouted impatiently as he entered the gate of the astronomy tower. Fully recovered. Sinistra's ethereal voice came from upstairs. Don't worry, Professor. I'm completely fine now. Besides, I just got back to Hogwarts and I came here to report to you right away. I can't wait to continue practicing stargazing that I interrupted. Yang Tian kept talking non-stop. Really? Sinistra was very relieved, but then she asked with a puzzled look on her face, in your previous letter, you said that you had recovered a long time ago, and you have never fallen behind in theoretical knowledge. Didn't you try to practice on your own? Alas, I am also extremely anxious. Yang Tian said pitifully, but teacher, you also know how great my talent is. If I had just continued to practice astrology, I would have completed all the special skills you gave me. Then how could you have the sense of accomplishment you experienced in person? Sinistra was thoroughly amused. She said speechlessly, go away, you only know how to brag. With such ability, I really want to see how you perform today. But let me be frank with you. If you fail to visualize even one star tonight, I will show you how I will deal with you. After that, she took Yang Tian to the upper level of the astronomy tower. Chapter 176. On the upper floor of the astronomy tower, Professor Sinistra said without any nonsense, come on, Xiao Tian, try Venus first. Hearing this, Yang Tian quickly went over the process of observing Venus in his mind. He then picked up his tools and calculated the approximate position of Venus based on the current time and the star map. After that, he picked up the telescope and searched carefully. Everything was done with precision and smoothly. Sure enough, just like last time, in just a moment, Yang Tian's eyes were gleaming with golden light, and the golden element tiger in Danshan also went straight to Yang Tian's brain. The exact position of Venus was found. At this moment, a straight golden light rushed towards Yang Tian, as if crossing time and space directly from the center of the forehead into his mind, and the two golden elements quickly merged into one and returned to the Danshan. With previous experience, Yang Tian did not feel too uncomfortable. He quickly looked inside and found that the little golden tiger had turned into liquid. The magic power in his brain also increased by 1/9, and the darkness in his brain was brightened a little. Professor Sinistra, who was watching from the sidelines, was completely shocked. She was mumbling something incoherently, but it was impossible to hear clearly. Suddenly, the professor noticed that Yang Tian had stopped, so he hurried forward to ask about the situation. After Yang Tian gave a general account, he continued to ask, "Professor, I feel that my current state is very good. Can I continue to visualize the next star?" Sinistra was a little confused at the moment. After all, she had never encountered such a situation before. Would continuous stargazing in a short period of time cause energy disorder in the body? But thinking about Yang Tian's amazing performance, she still said with hope, "Then try again, but don't force it. If you feel something is wrong, stop immediately. Don't worry, Professor." Although Yang Tian felt warmed by the professor's advice, he was not worried at all. Awakeners like Professor Sinistra, although they have mastered the ability to observe the stars, are inherently chaotic because the elements in their danshan have no structure at all. This means that only a very small number of people whose danshan elements are naturally arranged in certain rules can attract the power of the stars, and they are the so-called awakened ones. This is also the fundamental reason why there are so few awakened ones. However, even for these so-called awakened ones, only a small part of the energy obtained from stargazing will be absorbed, and due to the single trajectory, there will be serious rejection. These discoveries were what he had accidentally seen when he was instructing an old man in practicing astrology in China a while ago. Take the old man for example. Although he also practices Taoism through painting and has a pure elemental structure in his danshan, he still has a big problem. The old man did not draw magical creatures through the lifeline, but used a unique Tao to complete the painting. The most direct result is that the elements in the old man's body are only elements in a narrow sense, that is, a certain series of elements that belong to his Tao. Therefore, when the old man uses astrology, he can only attract elements that conform to his Tao. This is also the fundamental reason why he said that this astrology is not advanced. Yang Tian is completely different. His path is the path of lifeline, which is the so-called broad element. Therefore, Yang Tian not only attracts many elements, but also has a very high compatibility. This basically eliminates the possibility of rejection. Moreover, the elements in Yang Tian's danshan are already very powerful, and foreign elements cannot shake the original elements in the body. Therefore, the coma like the first time is basically impossible to happen again. With this thought in mind, Yang Tian began to calculate the position of Mercury. He was going to attack Mercury. For the next 2 hours, Professor Sinistra was already numb with astonishment. Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Yang Tian didn't miss any of them. It is particularly worth mentioning that Uranus actually evolved light elements, while Neptune evolved ice elements. Suddenly, Yang Tian's danshan was extremely spectacular. The light element gathered into a white three-legged crow, while the ice element gathered into a grey dragon, and the 5 elemental beasts were all liquefied. The evolution of 6 elements also meant that 6 magic powers were automatically generated and entered Yang Tian's mind. However, Yang Tian's magic power was already quite huge at this time, and the increased magic power was only 1/3 of the total magic power. The darkness in his mind was dispelled a little, and the energy nurtured in the darkness seemed to be one step closer to taking shape. The previously taught classes have all been completed. At this moment, Yang Tian couldn't help but ask excitedly, "Professor, what are we going to learn next?" Sinistra obviously hadn't recovered from her excitement. She pressed Yang Tian's little head with trembling hands and said, "You are amazing. This is beyond the description of genius. I must tell my teacher about this magical scene today. She will surely be eager to come and see you in person." After a pause, she tried to calm down and continued, "Of course, if you still have energy, I will teach you a new way of stargazing today. This is also an advanced stargazing method in our discontinued inheritance. Although it is incomplete, you can also learn a lot from it. It is called the constellation stargazing method. Constellation stargazing, as the name suggests, is to visualize the constellations. Although this stargazing technique cannot obtain the huge energy like planetary visualization, it is also a rare supplement, and it is also an important foundation for the subsequent application of stargazing. You have to understand that whether the awakener is powerful is absolutely proportional to the number of stars he visualizes. The constellation we are going to study today is called Equus. It is one of the few constellations in our lost heritage that has a clear trajectory calculated. Of course, stargazing is more complicated. Not only do we have to calculate the position of the constellation, but more importantly, the stargazing angle and the trajectory of energy. We can't just pay attention to the 5 stars of magnitude 5.5. Professor Sinistra explained the relevant knowledge to Yang Tian in great detail, and used various formulas to deduce. An hour later, Yang Tian finally found this inconspicuous little constellation under the professor's guidance, but he did not immediately practice astrology according to the professor's instructions. Instead, he interrupted the spell deduction of thread 3 and instead conducted a comprehensive deduction of this small constellation. Because when he saw this small constellation, he instinctively felt that something was wrong. Compared with the stars in the constellation, the derived orbit seemed too simple, and this advanced version of stargazing should not be so crude. So, he used the intelligent brain to verify it without hesitation, and he himself fell into deep thought at that moment. Chapter 177. Seeing Yang Tian's hesitation, Professor Sinistra felt disappointed at first, and then deeply relieved. Perhaps this was the only normal thing, right? This boy had performed well enough, and he had already walked ahead of many predecessors. What else could he ask for at this time? After some self-taught work, the professor suddenly felt calm. She looked up at the starry sky leisurely without interrupting her proud student's meditation. After an unknown amount of time, Sinistra, immersed in the beautiful night, suddenly discovered that the originally inconspicuous equus suddenly lit up, and the bright and dark stars began to connect alternately. Mysterious energy running tracks quickly emerged and disappeared. As more and more tracks emerged, they became more and more mysterious, and the entire constellation was filled with blue light. And in the next moment, a straight blue light shot out and rushed straight towards Yang Tian. Professor Sinistra stared at the scene in front of her with a dull look. Logically speaking, the energy light obtained by the constellation stargazing method should be difficult to distinguish with the naked eye, but Yang Tian obtained almost the same amount of energy as the planetary stargazing method. How is this possible? There is no theoretical basis at all, and it is completely beyond her cognition. Yang Tian was so happy at this moment. Wow, the energy of the pony constellation is actually the wind element. And the wind element energy obtained by the constellation stargazing method this time has actually made the wind element in the Danshan evolve. Looking at the green bird-headed and deer-bodied creature gathered in the Danshan, he was filled with emotion. Is this the difference between the broad sense and the narrow sense? Others have found a trajectory of energy in a constellation, but I have deduced the trajectory of all the energy in the constellation through my intelligent brain. Does that mean that all constellations will have an amplification effect on me beyond the norm? Then wouldn't I be? Of course, the delighted Yang Tian also thought of the problem. The reason why the equus was able to deduce the result so quickly was entirely based on the fact that Professor Sinistra already had a standard answer. In other words, based on one correct answer to deduce other correct answers, the speed of deduction can naturally be imagined. But what if it is a completely unfamiliar constellation? This seems to be another big project. Now Yang Tian's brain has 3 threads, one is used to analyze the Thunderbird's fate, one is used to analyze the space in the suitcase, and the remaining thread is used to deduce his magic spell. But now, alas! Yang Tian is even considering how to upgrade his brain again. Professor Sinistra was already speaking incoherently. Merlin. Yang Tian, how did you do this? This is a miracle, a miracle. No, this must be a major breakthrough in astrology, right? It must be. Yang Tian, tell me the trick quickly. Seeing this, Yang Tian did not shirk responsibility, but picked up the feather pen in his hand, picked out 2 relatively simple energy running trajectories, and then started to deduce and demonstrate. Professor Sinistra listened for 2 hours and was completely confused. Looking at the dozens of pages of parchment, she was about to cry and said, "So, the constellations contain countless energy trajectories, and you only explained the simplest 2 of them." That's right, Professor. In my deduction, there are tens of thousands of energy trajectories for equus. Apart from the one you described, the 2 just mentioned are indeed the simplest ones. Yang Tian replied. Professor Sinistra was completely speechless after hearing this. It took 2 whole hours. She only barely took a rough look at the 2 so-called simplest running tracks, but she was completely confused about the specific calculations. This made her feel deeply frustrated and powerless. But this emotion only rose for a short while, and the professor was enveloped by a huge sense of surprise. She was completely obsessed. This is definitely a breakthrough discovery in astronomy. I seriously suspect that this is the core element of the broken inheritance. As long as we continue to study based on this, maybe we can really complete the broken inheritance. No, I have to write a letter to the teacher. Yes, write a letter to the teacher, go now. Professor Sinistra was completely insane. She kept mumbling and everything around her seemed to have nothing to do with her. She walked down the astronomy tower while mumbling to herself, leaving her beloved student alone in the wind. The next day, Yang Tian, who had nothing to do, slept in for a rare late night. When he woke up, it was almost noon. After washing up casually, he rode on the cloud to go out to look for food, as he was really hungry. But as soon as I walked out of the dormitory door, I saw Professor Sinistra sitting on the sofa drinking coffee and reading a book. Maybe because it was still a holiday, there were very few students in the Ravenclaw common room, and no one came forward to disturb the professor's leisurely life. Seeing Yang Tian coming, Sinistra rarely showed an embarrassed expression. She asked tentatively, "Yang Tian, I'm sorry, the scene last night was really shocking. At that time, I only had the idea of writing a letter to the teacher, but I forgot about you in the astronomy tower. You didn't wait for too long, did you?" Yang Tian smiled and said, "Don't worry, Professor. I'm not someone who will wait foolishly." Sinistra heard this and smiled as if relieved, "That's good. In that case, come with me to see the teacher first. I just sent my letter last night, and I thought the teacher would be delayed for a few days." Unexpectedly, the teacher was too anxious. "He rushed here early this morning. However, I can fully understand her feelings. You don't know that my teacher is a famous astronomer in the wizarding world, and she has a long family history of learning. She has devoted her whole life to astronomy, and has been committed to completely restoring the ancient astronomical heritage. But despite her lifelong efforts, the results she has achieved are really limited. However, now it's good." The professor chattered excitedly, and the two of them came to the astronomy tower while chatting. As soon as he entered the astronomy tower, Yang Tian saw an old lady with white hair and wrinkles on her face. At this moment, she was calculating something with parchment. When she encountered a difficult problem, she would frown and think, and sometimes scratch her messy hair. "Teacher, Yang Tian is here." After standing by for a quarter of an hour, Sinistra finally couldn't help but remind him. The old lady, whose eyes were originally unfocused, was finally awakened by these words. She looked around blankly at first, and after locking onto the target, she stood up nervously and rushed to the two people. "You are Yang Tian, right? Come on, help me explain the deduction process." As she spoke, she couldn't wait to drag Yang Tian to the table. Sinistra wanted to say something, but seeing the teacher's anxious state, he could only make an apologetic gesture to Yang Tian. Chapter 178. Yang Tian always respected those who were devoted to academic research. So when the old lady made the request, Yang Tian did not shirk his responsibility, but picked up the feather pen and calculated seriously on the parchment. Time passed by, and the parchments were consumed one by one. The old lady who had been watching from the side exclaimed in admiration from time to time. Professor Sinistra had given up at this point. Although Yang Tian had roughly explained it to her yesterday, he still couldn't keep up with the crazy speed of calculation. On the other hand, the old lady's eyes were getting brighter and brighter and more crazy. Until Yang Tian completely calculated a running trajectory, the old lady actually cried. Was it joy or fulfillment? No one could understand. After venting her emotions, she struggled hard to get out of her overflowing desire for knowledge. The old lady introduced herself very solemnly. "Hello, Mr. Yang Tian, my name is Stella Herschel, I am Aurora's teacher, and I am very honored to meet you." Yang Tian was surprised when he heard this. He quickly said respectfully, "Ms. Herschel, Professor Sinistra is my teacher and also my guide in astronomy. And you are Professor Sinistra's teacher. Please don't be so polite between us." The old lady admired Yang Tian's modesty very much, but she still said firmly, "It's good that you don't forget the teacher's guidance, but now you have walked your own path. I believe it won't be long before you will teach us knowledge." Seeing that Yang Tian wanted to refute something, the old lady smiled and said, "How about this, from now on you can call me Stella, I don't want you to call me old. I am old, so I will call you Xiao Tian from now on." Seeing that Stella was determined and did not seem to be pretending, Yang Tian nodded in agreement. After such an exchange, the two sides became more familiar with each other. Stella seemed to open up the conversation and continued, "I heard from Aurora that you have only been exposed to astronomy for a short time and your basic knowledge is relatively weak. I am now retired and at home, focusing on studying astronomy. Let me discuss this with Dumbledore and stay in Hogwarts to accompany my beloved student. This way, not only will Aurora be with him, but Xiao Tian can also master the basic knowledge of astronomy faster. Of course, he can also ask Xiao Tian about the deduction process." Professor Sinistra curled her lips in grievance when she heard this. She whispered, "Teacher, don't you feel guilty for saying this? Why don't you stay with me? Teach Yang Tian by the way? Ask for advice on the deduction process by the way? How many letters do I write every year urging you to come over for a vacation, even if it's just to stay with me for 2 days? But the result is always in vain. Now you are pretending to stay with me. Okay, you're the only one who talks too much. I don't have time to argue with you, let's go find Dumbledore and talk things over first. Xiao Tian, you should go eat first. When everything is settled, we can start the class again." Before she finished speaking, Stella had already walked out in a hurry. In the evening, in the hall of Hogwarts Castle, Yang Tian finally met his friends whom he had not seen for a long time. Neville, Hermione, Penelope, Hannah, the Paddle sisters, Zhangqiu, Pansy, Daphne. Everyone was very excited and everyone gave him a big hug. Even the Weasley brothers stayed at the Ravenclaw table and chatted with their friends. Everyone was talking about their holiday life and exchanging holiday experiences. But before they knew it, the topic turned to the battle during the holiday, the rise of 3 women, the establishment of an alliance, and the Hogwarts student involved, Blaise Zabinai. While talking about these things, everyone in the study group stared at Yang Tian with ambiguous eyes. They instinctively felt that these things were closely related to Yang Tian. Just as everyone was chatting excitedly, Draco Malfoy led his 2 generals to Yang Tian. At this time, there was no hatred or fear on Draco's face. He ignored the Weasley brothers who glared at him, and did not look at the study group members who were wary of him. Instead, he said to Yang Tian with a sincere face. "Although Blaise Zabinai was responsible for everything that happened before, I also have my own problems. I came here today to sincerely apologize to you. Although I still dislike you because of some trivial things when we were young, as you said before, this does not prevent us from being classmates at Hogwarts, does it?" As he spoke, Malfoy stretched out his right hand. Yang Tian was just stunned for a moment, then he stood up and said with a smile, "Yes, the relationship between classmates is actually quite good." Then he solemnly extended his hand and shook hands with Draco. "Do you mind if I sit down and chat with you?" Draco did not rush to leave, but asked a little awkwardly. "Of course, it's my pleasure." Yang Tian kindly pointed to the empty chair next to him and gestured with his hand. Draco's joining brought silence to the originally lively discussion. The disgusted looks of the Weasley brothers and the defensive expressions of the other friends seemed to make Draco feel uneasy, but he still sat there firmly. But at this moment, Pansy spoke first, "Does everyone know about the battle during Christmas?" Hermione rolled her eyes. After all, everyone was talking about this topic just now. The little girl didn't want to talk. Penelope was very good at dealing with people. She didn't want the study group to have any problems because of trivial matters, so she said, "I heard about it. I didn't expect Mrs. Zabinai to be so miserable. And Sally and Kayla, this evil organization is so terrible. I deeply admire the fighting spirit of these 3 ladies. They will be my idols from now on." With the addition of Penelope, the situation naturally became easier, and Parvati immediately expressed her views. "We've arrested so many people, but we don't know if there's any new progress." Pansy spoke again at the right time. Draco gave Pansy a grateful look and said seriously, "The situation is not optimistic. According to my father, although some of the black-robed wizards do have real identities, they are relatively independent. The places related to their identities are either completely fine or have been deserted long before the incident. More importantly, these people were obviously specially trained, which seriously interfered with the acquisition of intelligence. They were even planted with various restrictions, and if they were not careful, they would die immediately. My father told me that at first, the Ministry of Magic did not take it seriously. They even selected 3 of the captured people and fed them truth serum. But no one expected that within half a minute of the truth serum being fed, the black-robed wizard exploded with a boom, and the interrogator was also seriously injured. The scene was very terrifying at the time. Then we have gained nothing. Padma said disdainfully, "The officials in the Ministry of Magic are so useless. It's not that we gained nothing. At least we caught a mole hiding in the Ministry of Magic. Even though he is just a small clerk, it is enough to make the Ministry of Magic angry." Draco replied. Chapter 179. There is such a thing? Tell me the details. The person who spoke was actually Hermione. The news was really too shocking. Hearing this, Draco quickly suppressed his contempt and said as solemnly as possible, "It was a coincidence." The lurking traitor was called Aaron, and he lived with his brother Abel. On Christmas Eve, Aaron was working overtime in the office, and his brother Abel was one of the captured black-robed wizards. After the Battle of Zabanai Manor, the brother who worked at Partridge's Cauldron shop was immediately recognized, so Mr. Scrimgeour sent 2 Aurors to subdue this so-called brother unexpectedly. Draco felt relieved after telling all the information according to the established plan. His father had spent a lot of money to find out this information, in order to bring him closer to his new friends. Fortunately, Pansy helped him, otherwise he might not even have the chance to say these words. But when the friends heard these secrets, they were shocked. Even the Weasley brothers, who were extremely unhappy with Draco, looked incredulous. "Even the Ministry of Magic has been infiltrated? I didn't expect the situation to be so serious. Will there be a larger-scale conflict next? I always feel that the current situation is very serious." Hannah asked with a little concern. The friends all fell silent after hearing this, and the atmosphere became inexplicably solemn. "Okay, don't scare yourself. It's not that serious. From what I've seen, this organization will remain dormant for a while. In short, there won't be any big moves in the short term." After a pause, Yang Tian continued, "But when they return again, there will surely be a bloody storm." "Why are you so sure?" Zhang Qiu asked suspiciously. Yang Tian said casually, "This time, those black-robed wizards did not ask for help. They have suffered several losses and they don't want to be consumed again. This is enough to prove that they have realized their problems. Now they are like wolves, hiding in the dark to lick their wounds and accumulate strength. When we relax, they will give us a hard blow." Yang Tian's words did not ease the atmosphere. Instead, the friends were completely silenced. They seemed to have lost interest in talking and just ate their meals. But he did not comfort them again. These kids needed to grow up quickly. In this depressing atmosphere, there was a sudden sound of a spoon hitting a wine glass from the podium, and the entire auditorium fell silent. Headmaster Dumbledore stood up and said, "A lot of things have happened in the wizarding world recently, some of which involve our Hogwarts. A first-year student in the school, Mr. Blaise Zabinai, was arrested by the Ministry of Magic. I believe everyone here has heard the details. But as the headmaster of Hogwarts, I still need to explain. Recently, an evil organization has emerged in the wizarding world. Their members will collect wizard bloodlines, capture and sell wizards. It can be said that they are extremely evil. Unfortunately, Mr. Blaise Zabinai is a member of this evil organization. Despite this, I still want to say that I feel sorry and sympathetic for Blaise's experience. At the age of 11, he should have been studying and living carefree in Hogwarts and enjoying a happy childhood. But he went astray because of this evil organization. No one is born a devil. I don't even dare to think about what this child went through before entering Hogwarts. I really hope that Blaise can stand up bravely and expose to the public the evil that the evil organization has inflicted on him. Although he may be under various restrictions, please believe that it is not an unsolvable problem. Isn't Madame Zabinai alive and well? Or maybe he has other ties, but please believe that there will be many people willing to help him solve these worries. I also hope that all the young wizards present here can be careful and report any clues about the black-robed wizard directly to me. I will handle it personally and will not mention it to anyone. I will put the personal safety of the reporter first. This is my, Albus Dumbledore's solemn promise. Please believe the voice of a Hogwarts headmaster. I really don't want any more innocent children to encounter any accidents." Although the voice was low, the sincerity and care in it moved everyone present. Some little witches even couldn't control their emotions and burst into tears. Yang Tian, who had been listening attentively, sighed in his heart. The words were so straightforward, how could those black hands not understand? Snitch? Turn against them? But would such persuasion really work? But they must not alert the enemy. While he was thinking, Dumbledore had finished his speech and the dinner was finally over. The students of each college, led by their prefects, headed to their respective common rooms. Yang Tian naturally mixed in with them, chatting with his friends. But at this moment, Dumbledore's gentle voice came, "Mr. Yang Tian, I'm sorry to take up some of your time. I think I need to have a good talk with you." Sitting across from Dumbledore again, Yang Tian was confused. This was already the third conversation since the start of the school term, right? What was the topic this time? But seeing that Dumbledore was still talking about something else, Yang Tian was not flustered at all and chatted with the principal casually. After some discussion, Dumbledore finally got to the point, dark holy water is just an inducer. It cannot cause much harm to people. The reason why it is banned is because its production process is too evil. But I never expected that you would almost lose your life because of the inducer. However, after careful investigation, I discovered a problem. I remember that some time ago, Madame Pants reported to me that a book about the soul was lost in the restricted section of the library. I didn't pay much attention to it at the time. But if we consider all the doubts, it is not difficult to make a bold guess. You must have absorbed something from that book, right? Yang Tian frowned when he heard this, but he still explained, I did go to the restricted book section of the library. Penelope and Hermione were with me at the time. I did encounter danger in the restricted book section. A black energy was projected from the book, causing severe damage to my body. It was Penelope and Hermione who helped me back. But the next morning, apart from the pain in my body, I didn't feel any other discomfort, and gradually I forgot about it. Dumbledore was silent for a while, then he said, I see. It seems that the books in the restricted section do contain many secrets. Hearing this, Yang Tian frowned even deeper. Principal Dumbledore, the most important issue now is not how I am doing in the restricted area, but who put the dark holy water in the place where I usually sit. Isn't it? Of course, of course. Dumbledore said with a little embarrassment, but it's not easy to be sure. We have certainly done some screening, but the results are not ideal. So let's observe it for a while, how about it? Hearing the headmaster's answer, Yang Tian could no longer hold back his anger. His face was as gloomy as water, and his deep eyes looked directly at Dumbledore, and he said in a deep voice, Headmaster Dumbledore, there is something I want to say, but I don't know whether I should say it or not. Chapter 180. Principal Dumbledore, there is something I am not sure whether I should say or not. The cold tone of voice startled the old principal. Since I entered Hogwarts, I have been attacked many times, right? The overall feeling is that the school has investigated me very clearly. What kind of black magic did I use in the Forbidden Forest? Where did this black magic come from? How did I get injured? Are there any unknown secrets in the details of my injury? The school really spared no effort and was very meticulous. I am a victim. Well, in order to investigate the real culprit, I understand. Yang Tian said casually. But when it comes to investigating the real culprit, that person is the one who wanted to kill me. Why can't the school investigate any further? The first time we were in the Forbidden Forest, the clues were cut off when they reached Mr. Filch. My people provided new clues but there was no further news. We still don't know who released the troll. Even the dark holy water, it's been more than 20 days now, right? My wounds have healed. But the investigation still yields no results. I don't understand. Are they too powerful, or is it that the school has invested too much unnecessary energy in me and has no time to investigate the person behind the scenes? Yang Tian's tone was cold and his words were radical. Dumbledore was silent. Some things make sense if you take them out one by one, but they don't make sense if you put them together. Some things are left unmentioned off stage, and no one cares, but once they are brought to the table, someone will always be embarrassed. Especially at this moment, Yang Tian looked at the old principal with deep eyes, his black eyes seemed to emit a seductive aura. I need a reasonable explanation, principal. The school does have an unshirkable responsibility for this matter, and I am also to blame. But I also hope that you can give the school a little more time. I believe that everything will eventually come to light. Or, if you need any help, as long as it is within the scope of school regulations, I will agree to it. Yang Tian was stunned when he heard this. The reversal seemed to come too quickly. Was Dumbledore really ready to compromise this time? Was he really going to give him benefits? Would he agree to it within the school rules? After searching the original novel, it seemed that Dumbledore had never made such a big promise, right? Although he couldn't figure out the deep meaning, Yang Tian was still fearless. He asked happily, as long as it doesn't violate school rules, it's all right, right? Of course, I will keep my word. Dumbledore answered firmly. That's great. As a typical Ravenclaw, I have a very urgent need. I want to browse all the books in the restricted area. Yang Tian made his request. Dumbledore was stunned again, and then he said, Child, isn't it too early for you to read books in the restricted area? I know that it has a fatal attraction for many young wizards, but there are still many books in the library that are worth reading. Yang Tian smiled when he heard this. He said confidently, Professor Dumbledore, I was forced to make this request because I have read all the books in the Hogwarts library. All, read it. Dumbledore was speechless. He had no intention of testing Yang Tian because for this child, there was no need to lie about such trivial matters. Okay, I can agree to your request, but there are 2 points we must agree on first. First, I must accompany you when you read books in the restricted area. Second, you have exceeded my expectations, so in return, you have to help me with some things. Dumbledore said frankly. Sure enough, the real purpose was revealed. Yang Tian murmured in his heart, but he still asked, what is the matter that requires help from an 11-year-old kid like me? Can you tell me first? Yang Tian was not fooled at all and put himself in a very low position. I think it was you who cured Madame Zabanai's restraints. Dumbledore got straight to the point this time. So, you are planning to let me? Yang Tian felt relieved at this moment. The Ministry of Magic needs someone who can unlock those restrictions, and you were the first person I thought of. Dumbledore explained frankly, after all, Severus and I have looked at it, and we have no idea at all. I don't know how many experiments these people have done to come up with such a vicious restriction. And it seems that the restrictions on each person are different. What else could Yang Tian say? This request must be granted. Wouldn't helping them be the same as helping himself? If the Ministry of Magic could really pry out some useful information from these people, it would definitely be a fatal blow to Saruk. But even if he agreed, he couldn't work for nothing, right? With this thought in mind, Yang Tian immediately came up with a plan. Of course I have no problem helping, and I am confident that I can remove the restrictions on these people. But in this case, our bargaining chips seem to be unequal. Browsing the books in the restricted area is to make up for my painful experiences of being attacked many times, which can be regarded as compensation. Although the compensation may be a little more, the difference is not much after all. But now we have to help the Ministry of Magic, and only I can remove this restriction. Such treatment will also be very costly to me. In this way, I will suffer a great loss. After all, this is a big favor. After saying that, he gave a look that said you know. Seeing this, Dumbledore couldn't help but mutter little fox in his heart, but he immediately asked back, what else do you want? Hearing this, Yang Tian fell into deep thought, well, it's hard to say. At least I haven't thought about it yet. How about this, you owe me a request. I'll ask you when I remember it. Haha, if it was any other little wizard, I might have agreed to it. As for you, I'm sorry, I'm really afraid of being cheated by you. Dumbledore said righteously. Yang Tian's face suddenly darkened, Professor Dumbledore, I am also an 11-year-old child after all, am I so untrustworthy? Dear Yang Tian, an 11-year-old child will not bargain with the principal in the principal's office for benefits. The old principal had no intention of giving in. Yang Tian was too lazy to argue. After thinking for a while, he finally said, well, Professor Dumbledore, my ambition is nothing more than related to knowledge, so my future requests must also be related to acquiring knowledge. Go to a magic school library to read, or study with a knowledgeable teacher. Such a request should not be too much, right? Dumbledore thought carefully before saying solemnly, if that's the case, I can help with introductions and lobbying, but I can't use coercive means. This should be fine. Of course, Professor Dumbledore. However, the wording here should be slightly changed to full recommendation and full lobbying. Of course, in order to protect my rights, how about we take an unbreakable oath? Dumbledore was speechless again, does it need to be so formal? I think it is still necessary. After all, I am a child and what I fear most is being deceived. That will cause great harm to my heart. Yang Tian said with a smile. That's not impossible, is there any trap here? Professor Dumbledore asked uncertainly. Professor, you worry too much. This is just my thirst for knowledge. Yang Tian assured. So, after the two of them had a verbal argument and carefully drafted the oath, Dumbledore finally signed this unbreakable oath with Yang Tian.